Did we say it was?
I said that tonight we're doing the Geeky Gamer podcast with Jed Shaffer, all the way here from the internet.
The internet's.
We're perfectly on time. It is exactly 7 p.m. Eastern time zone.
Exactly.
Thanks a bunch to our contributors to this podcast. All lowercase letters and Mr. Interrupt provide the score. We got Patreons Tim Roberts, Daniel Hulker, Nostalgic, and Natalia Cline, as well as Couchfire Media brings you this wonderful production that's happening right now. And Trois Replay Productions brings a story, attitude,
those guys,
content,
really
all that other wonderful, awesome stuff. It's Thursday, and yeah, I think because that's when we do the Geeky Gamer podcast.
Oh yeah, right. I'm updating fucking YouTube's metadata because Restream didn't do it, so we were saying we were doing a DreadLore core book read through.
Do you know what episode number this is?
Yeah, we're at number 15.
15 already?
We're at 15, motherfucker.
There's no way.
Don't you know way me? There's absolutely way. Now I'm gonna look again, but I'm pretty sure way. Pretty sure.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So we have Ken Howl, myself, and hey, Jed.
Hey.
Who are you?
I don't know anymore. I am Jed Shaffer. I'm the co-host of the First Gen Gamers podcast. I'm a dad, a horror movie fan. I'm not a knower of all things, despite the description you put. My children would
spell the mystique.
My children would definitely go, no, he does not know all things.
Yeah. So how long have you been doing you're a fellow podcaster? I'm pretty sure that means we have to have like a fencing duel or something. That was funny.
Yeah.
Tell us about your podcast. And the pathway to hell, which it is to be a podcaster.
I've traveled this. This is my 4th podcast in the past, 12, 15 years.
Oh.
And I have an idea for a 5th one.
God.
I know I'm bad. I need help. But First Gen Gamers it's a podcast with 2 longtime gamers, like 80s, going back 35, 40 years. It came to me because I had been watching and seeing a lot of content. You see on whether it's IGN or Polygon or YouTube or podcast, you see a lot of like top 10 lists, top 5 lists. And they tend to gravitate towards the modern. You say 5 best RPGs and you get Final Fantasy 15 and you get the latest you get a lot of stuff from the last 10 years, but that leaves out a lot of history. And
15. Oh my.
Yeah, hey, it depends on the website.
Wow.
I wouldn't say that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it might pop up. But the idea for First Gen Gamers is that rather than take a topic and just number 10 things, we go console generation by console generation, picking the best candidate. And we don't converse ahead of time. We pick the topic ahead of time, but we don't say, hey, do you think this is the best candidate for this category? It's 2 people coming up with their own lists of the best candidate, and then the podcast is us going, okay, I think the best horror game on the Sega Gen or for the 4th Gen is this, or I think and
you sort of check it out.
Right. And so we start off at the 2nd Gen, which is, like the Atari 2600 and television.
No, I don't know.
Yeah. And we start there. It's
I
way
want to
back.
know. I'm gonna ask you. I'm gonna ask.
It's way back when we played video games with sticks and rocks. But we start off with that generation, and then we go one by one all the way up to the 8th generation, which is PS4, Xbox One, the Wii U, and the Switch.
Wow, you guys are
So
geeks.
many.
Yes, it is. It is a celebration of gaming history, but at the same time, it also requires an extraordinary level of nerddom.
Yeah, well, you had to have. I mean, you had to be there. It seems.
It helps. It does help a lot. Like there are people. I mean, you can find people who are younger and who get into retro gaming and collect all the systems, appreciate it for what it is. But having been there, there is a little different feeling of, being able to pick out that favorite platformer game on the NES because, well, I was 8 when it came out. So
Right.
there's
Well, I know Ken has a bunch of questions, but yeah, I don't want. Yeah, Ken, do you have questions?
I always have some questions. So do you have a favorite NES game? Is there? You just kind of left us there, and I kind of wanted to know
Legend of Zelda.
your
Come on.
a favorite overall NES game.
Yeah, for the first generation, that
Ooh.
first little Nintendo. We were playing the Atari, and it was all lines and shit. And then suddenly, you got Mario Duck Hunt Olympics coming out. Do you have a favorite? And does that game from the first generation Nintendo, is it the same now as it was then?
It definitely wouldn't be the same now as it is then. If you're asking 8-10-year-old me, that game is probably Zelda 2.
Okay, hold on a second.
But
You're talking about the Adventure of Link.
yes, I love the
That's
adventure.
your favorite. That's your favorite.
If you're asking if you're asking me 30 years ago, yes.
I hate that game.
I know most people do.
I fucking hate that game.
I know
I'll
most
tell you
people do.
why. Do you know why I hate that game?
Because it can be brutally unfair, because it is a horrible translation. Death Mountain being the 3rd dungeon.
Dude. Continue.
Believe me, I get it. I just for some reason love the game. I can't explain why. But if you're asking, if you're asking me now, 46-year-old guy me, it's a basic answer, but it's Super Mario Brothers 3. It is platforming excellence. It is impeccably designed. The power-ups are fun. The level design is immaculate. There's not a bad level in the game. There's not a bad boss fight in the game. It's just a remarkable design, and not my favorite Mario game, but it is on that system the best Mario game.
Now they that's when they introduced the raccoon.
Yep.
And Super Mario Brothers. No. Super Mario Brothers World is where you can fly. You got the cape, right?
You can fly in 3 too, but it's with the raccoon suit.
You get the raccoon tail.
With the tail. With the cape in Mario World, it's more flying, and you can kind of
glide or something.
Yeah.
But
Mario World was Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
Yes.
But Mario Brothers 3, it introduces the idea that you can like transform beyond the fire flower.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that and then you can like drop behind. There's a certain. It's like a white block, or and you can drop behind that, and that's how you can move around.
It had a 3D. It was meant to be more 3D. I think at one point in time they were trying to make it have levels front to back because of that.
Well, it did kind of, and they had the giant place. That was my favorite. Right?
Yes. World 4. Yeah.
Dude,
like the Goombas are like. Yeah.
Hands down. You're right. Mario Brothers 3. That's legit. What'd you think of Mario Brothers 2?
I liked it.
I enjoy it. I know that it's different. I know that it's the thing that everyone's gonna say, kind of Doki Panic.
What's that?
The game Mario Brothers 2 for the US wasn't actually developed as Mario Brothers 2. There was a game.
Right.
Yeah. It was a reskin of a Japanese game called Doki Panic. And
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's one of those did you know facts that like 90% of
It was for the
gamers
Famicom or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. But I enjoy it for what it is. It's definitely the outlier in the Mario Brothers franchise, but the thing that I will defend about it, and I will defend about Zelda 2,
Sure.
is that
You're wrong, but yeah, go on.
the idea of it being an outlier is true only in retrospect.
Yeah, exactly.
When they came out, there was only one game before them. So the fact that they deviated from the formula, they didn't. They were just the second game.
Okay,
It wasn't
Adventure of Link. We'll get to that. I have a whole thing. Mario Brothers 2. You liked it. What are the? It's aside from the outlier thing. What did you like about it?
I enjoy it's hard to explain because it is hard to explain. I just you know what it is at this point, I couldn't tell you what 8-year-old me liked about it. I can tell you what I like about it now. I know I can beat that game like that.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
it is a comfort game for me. Like if I'm sitting there and I want to play a retro game and I don't know what I want to play, like I don't know if I want to play old Nintendo. I don't know if I want to play old Genesis or what. I know that I can pop on Mario 2 and beat the game and have an hour's worth of fun. Yeah.
So which character do you play?
Usually Mario, except
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't like Toad's jump minimize jump range.
He sucks at it.
Yeah. The only one that I will is on how I'm playing. If I go all the way to 4-2 and I use the warp zone there, it's a lot easier to use Princess.
I use Princess exclusively. She was always my favorite.
Interesting.
So as a kid, playing that game was spectacular, and the reason is because it, for lack of a better term, it made it fun. There was suddenly lore. There's a difference between Mario, Luigi, and who the fuck is Toad.
Mm-hmm.
And Princess, you suddenly get to play the princess. That's fucking awesome. And I don't think she was named Peach. I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I think she was just Princess.
I think that was Mario Kart when they started that. I'm not 100%. I was literally thinking about them.
The first one, wasn't she Peach in the first one?
She's Princess Toadstool.
Oh yeah, Princess Toadstool. Yeah. But Toad was in the first one. He was the guy at the end, always saying, "Oh, the princess sitting here. You gotta keep going."
Is that Toad? Is that
Toad? That's Toad.
I didn't know that.
And Toad was the fastest to pick up the turnip,
he could
right?
Pick up stuff. Yeah.
He could pick up things faster than anybody else, whereas
and Mario's the best because he's got the average
manic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then and had
Princess
that
could kind of fly.
And Luigi had that. And Luigi had that floaty jump that went further, but at the same time, he seemed to not have enough traction.
Yeah, he was a little slippy.
So what I didn't like about Mario 2 is this: one, it's kind of too easy. It is cartoony, and they're all cartoony, but Mario 2 is like a cartoon. I loved it. What I didn't like though was at the end. Hey, spoilers! At the end, me being like however old I was like, it's not real.
No, he wakes up,
and it gutted me. It gutted me. I was like, all the pain and the strife.
You know what really pisses me off about that ending now? I mean, that ending is bad enough because I hate it was all a dream endings in games, in movies.
Sucks.
Yeah, in any kind of media. I hate that ending because it's a cop-out. You've wasted your time. Right. But what really drives me nuts about that ending now is also a big nerd for continuity.
Mm.
Continuity matters to me probably more than it really should. And
So you love the Star Wars movies. Continue.
I really there's certain the original 3, sure. The ending of that bothers me because it turns the entire game into a dream, except for the fact that Shy Guys and Birdo and a few other creatures in there have been a part of other Mario games. So if Birdo and Shy Guys and all of those guys were part of a dream, how the hell are they like a part? Or any other Mario game for that matter?
Yeah, they cheated.
Pretty much.
Adventures of Link, or The Adventure of Link. Okay. That game is fucking awesome. It's hard. It's an actual role-playing game. It's the first game from me. I had an older brother. I have an older brother, I should say. And so he had all these games. One day I found Ultima, and I was like, what the fuck's an Ultima?
Ooh.
For example. I didn't play it much. Got an Adventure of Link, and it's so hard. I didn't understand it as a kid. I didn't know how to play it. I didn't know that you could farm, or like, what is it called?
Experience points?
Yeah, you could just get super powered in that little cut level. You know, you're going around in the map, and then boom, you're in the cut level. You just kill a bunch of like bees for 20 hours, and now you have level 5,000, whatever the fuck you want to be. Yeah. All that's fine. Different kind of game. A little bit tedious. Little tedious. I loved it until the very end, when I think it's the end. It's where you've got to go through the lava part. It's the overmap. You go through the lava part, and then you're getting to I think it's the last dungeon, or the big palace. And to get there, you use up all your life. You continues, you get fucked up, and then you get there, and just over and over and over and over. It's like, I hated it. There we go. There we go.
Dude, I understand. It is not
It's a hard fucking game.
Yeah, if I'm putting it up against, say, A Link to the Past,
Sure.
which is
Amazing.
Objectively, it is
Amazing.
a much better designed game. It is a much better playing game. It is an amazing, terribly fun game.
Yeah.
Zelda 2 is designed scattershot is the best way I could put it. It is all over the place. I can't really justify why I love it. Maybe because it is the Zelda game that brought RPG elements into it, and maybe it's because it decided to have an overworld, but then the battles take place on a side, a side view. Yeah. I like that it took a bold swing.
Yeah.
Even if it didn't stick the landing 100%, I will champion a piece of art that takes a bold swing and doesn't quite fulfill its goal over something that completely plays it safe and succeeds.
Did you play Kid Icarus or Kid Icarus?
I never had it. I played it at friends' houses. I could never get that.
I fucking loved that game. And the reason I mention it is it had a very similar interface that Adventure of Link does.
Yes.
It doesn't have the overworld, but it's the same kind of, like, you see the big character, like it's like you know who Link is. And there's strategy of how you fight in Link. And you could actually literally be good at fighting. The thing that I loved about it was you had your little mana score. Ken, did you play any of these games? I think you're muted.
Oh yeah, I played Link.
Yeah, like your little mana score, your magic, and then you could literally go get, like, you could almost spec your magic items. And I thought that was so cool. Like, you cast a spell and like drink the thing, and you can jump really high or whatever. That was awesome. God damn, dude. Like, if you were just unlucky, then you got screwed when you were trying to get to the thing. You finally get to the castle. And then, like, you're moving down the way, and it's one of those games where shit just spawns.
Yep.
Right? So if you happen to, like, accidentally go the other way, the bosses that fucking come back and...
I understand completely. It's that whole generation, and that, I mean, my first systems were in the Atari and generation of consoles, but that generation, especially the NES Sega Master System generation, even though that was the one where it took the big technical leap and the games were starting to feel and look more arcade quality, games that shouldn't have had arcade tendencies still did, like Kid Icarus or Zelda 2 for that matter, with the brutally hard difficulty. They designed these games with unfair difficulty, with respawning enemies, with ridiculous weapons and item placement, because they did it in the arcades, so why don't we do it at home?
Right.
And for, that's fine for the original Super Gradius or something like that. It doesn't make sense for Zelda 2 or Kid Icarus or Metroid, like those. Well,
a console is what it is. You're not putting in quarters.
Right. Well, I mean, it could make sense if the game is...
They designed some of these games to be a little easier, like Super Mario Brothers 2. They designed it to be easier. I think Metroid was more difficult, probably on the Nintendo. Was it on the Nintendo?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, the game was awesome.
Metroid 2, I think that was on the Super Nintendo.
No, it was on the Game Boy.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
It was on the Game Boy.
And amazing. I don't know how I was playing my Game Boy. Like, like the... like one color. Like, you can't look at it in the dark. I had the little, dumb screen in the magnifying glass.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I was so enthralled by Metroid 2. The music in these games was amazing.
Oh yeah.
I would just play it and have it on. It's awesome.
Oh yeah, there's music from that generation and from the Super Nintendo Genesis generation. Before they were able to do quality and full bands and stuff, there's music on those games that is just as catchy as regular music. Like, if you've played Mega Man 2, you know that Flash Man.
Oh yeah, dude.
And your blood just gets you get pumped the minute you hear it, and then you have to do that stupid falling part where the beams are coming from the sides, and you're like, oh shit, I can't fall right bottom.
Mega Man, dude. I swear. Anyway, go on.
The two of the... Actually, okay, three. The three accomplishments that I have in pride more than anything else. Beating Zelda 2.
Sure.
Beating Mega Man 2. Beating Ninja Gaiden. Did it once. Took me a year. Took me a year's worth of practice.
Dude. So I always called it Ninja Gaiden because I'm from Kentucky.
It could be Gaiden.
It's probably Gaiden. It's probably Gaiden. That game. Jesus. So I love the game. I like the idea of the game. I like the intro. I think it's hilarious that you have a ninja who's wearing completely orange. Whatever.
Yeah.
You got a dragon sword, you flip and shit, you look cool, and oh my god. You fight monsters.
It is insanely difficult. Partly by intentional design and partly by bad design. Like the respawning, you twitch to the left and then you twitch to the right and you twitch to the left, back. And you could do that a million times and kill the enemy coming back, and it's so frustrating. The day that I beat that game, I remember I felt a sense of relief, but also just this great exhaustion. And I put down my Nintendo controller. I'm like, I'm done with that game. I'm not playing that. I'm not playing that game ever again.
And when you beat it, is it because I'm not super familiar with it? Is it one where you basically have one life or a couple of lives, and you have to play hours and hours long, or it's just super technical? There's like no save points. There's no.
There are it. So there.
It's like
it is a
code
side.
fading, right?
So if you die, if you lose all your lives, you can continue, but you get kicked back to the start of the level. And the levels have multiple chapters to them. Yeah. But you don't get kicked back to that start of that chapter. So if you get to like level 5-4 and you run out of lives and you hit continue, you start back at 5-1. So it was brutally unfair. You had to play near perfection.
Yeah.
Over and over and over to get to those final levels. And those last two levels, level 5 and level 6, are just gauntlets of hell.
You're just relay racing through it. That's the days where like you'd have your Nintendo, and it had like the big chunky buttons, right? You had the power and you had the reset and the red light. All right, that's the on light. And what you do is you turn off the TV, but you keep the NES on, and you look over and you say, "Mom, don't turn off the NES.
Yeah,
it's on." And some motherfucker would bump it and bump the reset button.
Mm-hmm.
So you come home and be like, "Oh fuck yeah, I'm ready." Throw the controller. Go outside. Scream at God. Nothing would happen because God's not listening to you.
No, God's just going, sorry, try again.
Yes.
Start from 1-1.
Ninja Gaiden, fuck. That game is rough. And Ken, what you could do in it is if you jumped at a wall, you would just stick to the wall.
Yeah. Because
you're ninja. It's cool. And then there's like a way, but you couldn't climb. I think maybe certain parts you could climb, but you had to be like look. And then when you got to like a ledge, you had to have the technique to get to a ledge and flip on top of it. And I was like 6, and I was like, look at my thumbs. Nothing. I hate and love the game. Pretty much like I do with everyone who's close to me. Kind of a seminal event in my life.
I loved Contra. That was like my go-to. It's probably one of my faves of the time.
Go ahead.
I didn't really have much to add. I mean, I don't know how we learned about the cheat code for that.
Like, is it the up, up, down, down, left, right?
Yeah, left, right. Left, right, and you got to just go forever. But that leads me to this question that I have, is something that kids don't get to have today, which is there's mystery, and there's like, we didn't know the answers. We had to discover secrets, but we also, whenever a new generation of game would come out, we get perspective changes. And Mario was all profile, and then eventually time would go by and it became more 3D, and watching the generations of games develop through time, which kids today get like pretty realistic games starting out, and so they don't have that joy of Tetris where it's just blocks falling down. I mean, maybe they do. I don't know. Mario, what is that? Dr. Mario or
I loved Dr. Mario.
Yeah.
I loved it.
So what do you having brought kids up in this day and age, did you introduce them to the Nintendo first, or did they get to jump into the whatever was current, latest and greatest at the time, the new stuff?
They kind of a mixed answer, because when they were born and they started coming up, was PlayStation 3, 360 generation. And I started off that generation with a Wii. So that meant I had the Wii games, but they also had the Virtual Console. So they saw Super Mario Odyssey and Zelda game that came out on that system that I'm blanking on. Twilight Princess. Mad World, No More Heroes. They saw the original Super Mario Brothers trilogy and the original Legend of Zelda and those Virtual Console games. So they saw both and they played a little bit of both, but they gravitated more, especially once I got the PS3, they gravitated more towards the new flashy stuff because it's prettier, it's glossier, it looks closer to human. They just weren't impressed with Nintendo era, Sega Genesis era, stuff like that. They never found it nearly as appealing as Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto and more modern stuff. And as much as I would like them to appreciate it, as much as I would love to be able to sit down and play Super Dodgeball from the NES or something like that with them, it's just not their thing. So you kind of just got to let them develop and appreciate what they're gonna.
Yeah, those old games, just games in general, like people can say, okay, well, the newest thing, like maybe like a VR type game, right? Like something that's very, very involved, is always going to trump other games. And I don't think this is the case. Maybe because I'm ancient, but I think it's because while they are games that have different technology or improved or more complicated technology, you're getting something out of the game, getting different things out of the game. Like when I play the original Legend of Zelda, which was on the NES for anyone who's listening, because a lot of people don't know that, apparently. I'm not going for the same thing that I would be going for in a Call of Duty. I love Halo. I love playing Halo, but I'm not gonna, like, that doesn't diminish how much I like playing a side scroll game or one of those types of things.
I think too, for younger people, video games as a form of media are unique when you compare them to, say, music or movies, whereas there is evolution in, let's take movies as an example. You watch a Charlie Chaplin movie and you compare it to Avengers Endgame. Yes,
sure.
They're completely different. They're doing things in Avengers Endgame that would have made Charlie Chaplin's head friggin' explode. But they're not all that far removed as far as the technology goes, as far as the medium of and of that. It's still a motion picture, still people on screen acting things out, saying lines, background music, sets, costume design, all that stuff. The medium of movies is, other than slight technological advancements, is fairly static throughout, the past century. Video games aren't. You look at any generation, with the exception of maybe the last two generations, like say PS4 to PS5, there's not a large technological leap in those two. But you look at any other pair of generations, and they're quantum leaps. From the Atari to the Nintendo, from Nintendo to the Super Nintendo, from there to the PlayStation, and so on and so forth. Every generation is radically different. And it's hard, I think it's hard for kids to appreciate that stuff because they weren't there to see it go from the original Super Mario Brothers to Super Mario World to Super Mario 64. They don't, that historical perspective is tricky to have when the newest, latest, great, when all your friends are, it's hard to go back. I mean, never mind the fact that a lot of this stuff isn't even accessible.
Right. Unless it's
Like-
an emulator or something.
Right.
And then it's
So-
not the same. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's
The feel of the game is completely different. The controllers
Yeah.
feel different.
The
Yep.
wonkiness isn't there. Like the little glitches you can do, they're fixed, you know?
right.
1 second.
Oh. We'll see ya. Okay, so do you think that affects the younger generation at all to not have that experience?
I think it does affect them in a way. I mean, aside from the fact that that means they are losing a lot of gaming history and a lot of good gaming history. There's so many undiscovered or forgotten games that no one thinks about anymore. And they're never, ever going to be that generation that picks them up. You know, you get a couple, you get a few young people, but by and large, they're not going to be that. But I think the bigger thing that sticks in my craw about it, the newer generations really push all aspect of a game. You know, oh look, we've got ray tracing. Oh, look how realistic the water looks. Whatever, little realistic faces. That's great, but if the gameplay's crap, who friggin' cares? Like, look at all the games in the past few years that have come that looked, from a visual standpoint, absolutely amazing. Forspoken, Babylon's Fall, Lawbreakers, Battleborn. There's so many games that have come out, and you're like, that looks
Like
beautiful.
Hellblade. Is Hellblade one of those? Like I thought it was like, it's the one where it's the Viking girl.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck?
I
amazing.
loved the first Hellblade. Great game. It's a very weird game.
It's super weird. Super weird looking. I didn't
But-
play it. I always watch the cinematic stuff because I don't have any consoles.
It is a bizarre game. It's almost kind of David Lynchian. It's very
Like
weird.
you have no idea what's going on, and it's steeped in like Nordic history, right?
Yeah, it does use a lot of Nordic history for its basis. But so many games now, it's not all of them, but so many of them are putting visuals first. Gameplay should always be first. No matter what, whether you're on console, whether you're on PC, whether you're on emulator, I don't care what it is. Gameplay drives the engine. It's like gameplay is to games what plot is to. If you don't have that, all you have is something pretty to stare at. And I think the modern, I think at the very least for like the big budget games, you see more. Get it out quick, make it look pretty, wow them with visuals, and they don't remember to put in depth. And kids are getting used to that.
I am literally writing down what you just said. The gameplay drives the engine. Without that, all you have is something pretty to stare at. It actually kind of rhymes. Two,
Yeah,
I like it. That's really cool, and that can apply
Good words.
to a lot of stuff.
Good prose. Did you ever get into Big World, like World of Warcraft? I don't know, live, whatever. Live.
No, you're talking like live service and
live services, and is Call of Duty like that? I've not played any Call of Duty. Call of Duty.
You know, Duality.
You know, I have my own experience with Call of Duty. Do your kids play that stuff?
Yes, they are major online gamers. Both of them love Call of Duty. One of them loves the youngest kid loves Fortnite. One of the older ones is big in God Online.
What is it called?
Grand Theft Auto Online.
Oh, Grand Theft Auto. I didn't know
Yeah.
GTA Online.
Yeah.
I had no idea that was a thing.
Oh yeah, it's Jesus. It never stopped. It's been going. They've had it since PlayStation. Doesn't stop. They've been milking it for 50 years at this point.
Dude. After the first or second time that I got the tanks going, I was like, all right, I'm good.
Grand Theft was great. I loved GTA 1 and 2. They were kind of my favorite games as a kid. Just there was a lot of joy and
Pulling people out of cars and stealing their shit.
Yeah, well, I mean, but you were like God. You were like looking down on these little boxes. You were looking down on like the cars, and I guess you could kind of tell what kind of car it was, but
oh, this is old school.
Yeah,
GTA.
old school GTA.
Yeah.
And then
Oh yeah.
I played a little GTA 4. Is that was that on the PS3? Whatever the first one came out with on the PS3.
Yeah, that was GTA 4.
That's the last console that I had. I thought the story was great. I really liked the scenes and cinematically interesting. I did feel kind of like a big jerk because I was just going around like killing prostitutes after utilizing their services, or just having fun running people down, like endless amounts of people down. It was like that was the game,
Yeah, right.
To murder people.
I mean, do GTA games actually have plots?
Yeah, they got plots.
I could not tell you one plot. Not one.
I couldn't either.
All I know is you get the stars until like the FBI's after you, and then you're winning. That's winning. Right?
They do have plots. I've not been a GTA fan in a long time. This may sound stuck up. I don't know. I find that the GTA games are a little too self-serious about their plot. Like they're trying to be a Michael Mann movie. They're trying to be this really serious, gritty crime drama. It's like, no, I don't want to play a crime drama. I just want to shoot people and spawn a tank and create carnage.
Tank.
Yeah, I want to have.
They're trying to be Pulp Fiction,
right?
They want to be Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah, and I don't want that. Like, there's a game that came out. I think it was around after GTA 3 or San Andreas something. There's a series that started called Saints Row. And that started as a GTA clone, but it started to go off course with the second one and especially the third one, where it developed this incredibly childish sense of very immature. Like, one of the weapons you get instead of a baseball bat, it is a 6-foot floppy purple dildo.
Oh, wow.
And you beat people to death with it. That's the kind of sense of humor that this game has. It is remarkably immature and stupid, but it's fun. It doesn't take
who doesn't want to beat the shit out of someone with a 6-foot delta?
Right. That seems like a Leisure Suit Larry just gone completely wrong. Oh my God,
Leisure Suit Larry.
Yeah, it is. And it restores fun to it, like, because it doesn't take itself seriously. It's just so stupid. Yeah.
Watch out. It's a dildo with a nail in it. Okay. I do have a question.
Okay.
I've been this burning question. What are the generations of gaming? Sir. Also, second question. What is this? Does anyone know? Do you old fuckers know what this is? Every flavor beans. Birdie Bots every flavor beans. Spelled with a U, hint.
So is there like one of every flavor in there, or?
Don't look it up, Ken. Don't you dare look it up.
I'm not looking it up. I'm
using
trying to
the
make
internet, you child of the net.
I'm making you bigger so you can see you.
Anyone know what this is? Birdie Bots?
Is that from that Oompa Loompa movie?
Oompa Loompa?
What's his name with the Johnny Depp or Gene
Wonka.
Yeah, Wonka.
Gene Wilder? No.
Yeah, Gene Wilder.
Harry Potter, guys.
I'm not a Potter fan.
Harry Potter.
Come on.
I didn't.
My family would have known it. They would have known it in a heartbeat. I am not a Potter person.
My special lady friend got me these. We're gonna see if they all taste like crap, because apparently they taste like everything.
Yeah. If it's every flavor, getting the dog poo one or the human poo or the blood or the
blood. That's the one I want. All right.
Like
what are the generations of gaming?
Boiled meat.
The console generations. Okay, so the first generation is the early 70s. The main machine is the Magnavox Odyssey.
Whoa.
There was also a metric shit ton of Pong consoles, where the console itself only had Pong in it. The next generation was the second generation was the Atari, the Intellivision, the ColecoVision, the Vectrex, and I believe the Fairchild Channel F. I can't remember if that one's first, the end of first, or beginning of second. Fairchild Channel F, historical note, is the first console with interchangeable cartridges. It pioneered it. Without that, we don't have the Nintendo.
Really?
Yep. They pioneered it, and the console died a quick death in like 18 months. It did not have the support, whereas Atari had the arcade background. They had, they could pull asteroids, they could pull Space Invaders. It was just right there.
Mm.
That's why they were successful.
Oh, that's cool. And the controller was really cool too. So this is first gen.
That's second gen.
Oh, that's second gen. Hold on, I was making notes. First gen is 1970s Magnavox.
Yes.
Magnavox. And
yeah, like 70.
What are those games? Just Pong?
Variations thereof, yeah, pretty much. They came on these cards that were about as big as an iPhone. You just pop them in, and a lot of the times, if you wanted, they're all in black and white. If you wanted color, they had these plastic overlays that you would have to put on your TV that would stick to the screen. And not only would they provide color, they also outlines or illustrations, translucent, of course, but to look like a basketball court, to look like a volleyball court, or whatever, to simulate the sport that it was trying to do, which was still mostly just variations of.
Whoa, so that's Gen 1.
That's Gen 1.
Gen 2 is the Atari.
Yeah, Atari 2600, Intellivision, ColecoVision, Fairchild Channel F, and the Vectrex, which was a really weird console that was built into a TV.
Oh.
Like it was a 9-inch, 11-inch TV, and the console was on the bottom. Oh yeah, it was very strange. And all of its graphics were vector graphics.
Really?
Yep. Hence the name Vectrex.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Did not have a large library, sold very poorly.
Because vector graphics, I mean, obviously it's interesting because that is now, okay, how to phrase this. I learned about vector graphics when I was learning Adobe Illustrator and, figuring out like PNGs and illustrations and all this stuff. And I was thinking of it as a new technology. And what you're saying is actually it's been around for a while.
Yes. Although it's very, you look at a vector graphics. Yeah. Vector graphics games like
lines.
Yeah. Asteroids, Battlezone.
I love that game.
Star Castle. Fun games, but yeah, it's basic. Connect the dots, very simple shapes, very simple illustration.
Like my illustrations. There's one game, and you play. It's not asteroids. You're a spaceship. You're just like a circle. You look kind of like the Millennium Falcon, actually, is what you look like. And if you go there, the map is a star field. That's it. And if you go off to the left, then you come back from the right, and
It's
the same
asteroids.
difference. Is that asteroids? And you
think
could
so.
spin 360.
Yeah.
Any way you wanted, and you'd shoot shit that came at you.
That sounds
And-
like asteroids.
And you had a hyperdrive thing that would randomly just go. And you could go like really fucking fast, spin around, and do these weird maneuvers and all kinds of stuff. Is that asteroids?
It might be super asteroids.
Man, it was badass. Totally, I love this game.
Been a while since I played Super Asteroids, but that it might be that because
Yeah,
it sounds very
with
familiar.
With asteroids, you're like a triangle. And then like you shoot a bullet and it goes exactly the length of the screen. And that's it.
That jelly bean was not good, huh?
Oh my god, that was like earwax, I think.
Yeah, earwax.
Oh, that was
Ear
pretty foul.
farts.
That's pretty foul. Okay,
Yeah.
third gen.
I don't see the
The appeal.
toy.
Neither do I. Third gen, the NES, Sega Master System,
Mm.
Atari 7800.
Oh, there's another Atari.
There's actually three. I forgot one in the previous gen, Atari 50, but most people forgot it. It was a huge failure. Atari 7800, their attempt at also a major failure.
Huh. Yeah, I didn't know. Master System. Okay. Perhaps you can clear this up for me. The NES and the Sega Master System. Now,
Mhm.
the NES was an 8-bit system, right?
Correct.
Master System was 16.
Yeah, it looks like it's very similar to the NES.
So it was also 8. Okay.
Yes, it did have more horsepower than the NES, believe it or not. It had a stronger processor, it had a stronger graphics processor, and it had a stronger sound chip. But it was Nintendo had some stronger business practices. Let's be generous.
I see. So when the Super Nintendo, the Super NES came out, the Sega Genesis came out.
Yeah.
But there was something in between the Genesis, it looked like this sleek black box. But prior to that, there was something that was comparable to the Super NES, and it was like larger than the Genesis. And I always thought that was the Master System, because you could
No.
play Mortal Kombat on it.
Not in the US, no. Maybe there was another Sega system that was before the Master System in Japan. It was called the Sega Mark One. I think it was the Sega Mark One, because the Mark II was what we got as the. But in the United States, it was Master System, then Genesis. Nothing in between.
I would go to my friend's house. It's right when Mortal Kombat had come out for the console. Because my brother, played it in arcades and was like, this game is awesome. And so it was going to come out for the NES or the Super NES. But of course, there's no blood, which is hilarious now. But at the time, they were like, well, we can't have blood. There's no blood. That's sweat.
Yeah.
It was the video game,
Okay.
no blood.
Well, the version that came out for the Sega didn't look as good. As in, the colors were better. It had blood, but like you had like little kind of dudes. I didn't like it as much. Anyway, I went to his house and he had not a Genesis. It was like, maybe it was a Genesis with like an add-on. I don't know if there was like a pack you could put on, but it was something different. And he was like, oh, this is an older Genesis or an older Sega. For 30 years, I have wondered what this
Were the games on cartridges, or were they on
Yeah.
like a card?
They were cartridges.
Okay. I don't know what that is. That might.
It had a thing on the side.
What do you know when this was?
Mm-hmm. This would have been like the year that, within a year or two of Mortal Kombat 1 coming out for the Genesis or the Sega and the Super Nintendo. So probably 93. Is it that early? Yeah,
I mean,
like 93 or something.
Mortal Kombat Sega Genesis 1 is that I was just playing a clip off of that, so I'm guessing probably just that.
I'm wondering.
Genesis.
The only thing that I can think of, if it wasn't actually a Genesis, is that so the consumer electronics manufacturer JVC, they used to be really big in stereos. There was a time 93, 94, I want to say, they got a license by Sega to create a combination Genesis CD. Genesis and Sega CD console all in one, and it was called the JVC XI.
Interesting.
So it wasn't a
Maybe
Sega
the
Saturn.
Sega.
Nope, it wasn't a Saturn. It was a Genesis and CD combo.
Huh.
I wonder if that's it, because this dude, actually, if he's ever watching, and to out him, his name's Kyle. We were really good friends. You know, of course, after elementary school and such, like, just kind of didn't hang out anymore. Actually contacted me not too long ago. So if Kyle, if you're listening or watching, what the fuck was your Sega?
All right.
Yeah, I don't know. But he tended to have like the new thing. But this entire time I've been like, oh yeah, the Master System was before the Genesis, but it was 16-bit. That's what I always thought.
Yeah, no, it was a 8-bit machine. Like you said, stronger than the NES, but Nintendo just was a little more cagey about their third-party license, and so Sega kind of got choked out in that generation.
So that's Gen 3.
Yep.
Well,
Gen 4, Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, and the NEC TurboGrafx 16.
That I don't know.
TurboGrafx 16 was, in Japan, it's known as the PC Engine. It had immense success in Japan, really big. But over here, it came here to the States, and it was a wet fart. It died a terrible death, which is unfortunate, because as obscure as the system was, and the system that NEC ever put out, as obscure and unfortunate as it was in the market, it has a great library. It's a small library, but it's really focused on quality. Like, there are very, very few things on there that are just bad. Most of them are good to great. If you like space shooters, it has a lot of good space shooters. It has the definitive version of R-Type.
What?
R-Type. It is a space shooter. The letter R-type. Yeah, it's a space shooter like Gradius or Life Force or one of those. But it's a classic shmup. It has some pretty good side scrollers. It had their own mascot side scroller called Bonk. He was a caveman with a huge fucking head, just this massive planetoid head, and he headbutted everything. And it was a caveman.
Big Bonk. Yeah,
it was a fun little system. It just kind of Sega was there being attitude and edgy, and Super Nintendo was being Nintendo Part 2, and there was just, you had one side appealing to younger kids, you had the other side appealing to the teenagers who had the Nintendo. There was just no room for the TurboGrafx.
Yeah. Well, okay, so that's Gen 4.
Yep.
And this is pretty much where my shit ends. I didn't have a console after the Super Nintendo. All right. But I did go to friends' houses, and I did play their consoles.
You
Gen
played
5.
GoldenEye.
Fuck, I did. Hell yeah.
Dude, that's what you did.
Gen
that was
5.
the game. That was the game, wasn't it? GoldenEye?
GoldenEye ruled.
So
was that Gen 5 or Gen 4?
That's Gen 5.
Yeah,
It is Gen 5. Okay.
So Gen 5 has a few weird consoles in it, along with the ones you know. So the ones you know: Nintendo 64, Sega Saturn, PlayStation 1. It also had the Philips CDI, the 3DO.
3DO, I remember that.
The Apple Pippin.
Nope.
And the Sega Pico.
The Sega Pico.
Yeah,
It sounds small.
How'd that do?
exactly as good as you think it did.
You know, it's a Sega Pico.
To be fair, the Sega Pico was a console at very young children, like Sesame Street, preschool, kindergartner. A lot of the games were edutainment. So it was a machine that was designed at a very specific market. It was not meant to compete with the Saturn and the N64.
Right. And it didn't. Right. Okay.
No, God, no. I don't know that Sega has acknowledged its existence in the past 25 years.
Wow. Now the Saturn, I remember the commercials. The commercials were cool because it was a CD.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And it was a big deal. Go on.
Saturn was CD. Saturn was very. The Sega screwed themselves with the Saturn by being too. I mean, they screwed themselves in a lot of ways. The Saturn was a failure for a checklist that could be a 2-hour podcast in and of itself. But one of the main ways that they screwed themselves was making it too technologically complicated.
In what way?
So rather than having a main processor and then a graphics processor and a sound processor, Sega Saturn had 2 different processors that were used simultaneously, but kind of split certain jobs in a certain way. And they were very cagey about telling the developers how these things worked. So trying to program a game to use them both effectively. A lot of developers would just program for one because they've decided that programming for 2 processors running simultaneously was just too damn that just made things difficult. Oh, yeah. I forgot. There was one other console in this generation, the Atari Jaguar.
Oh yeah, they had a brief little comeback.
Wow.
That was their final shot, and wow, did it not work. It was a spectacular disaster.
Oh god. Yeah, I'd never heard of it. The Jaguar. So the 64, I remember it was a big deal because one 64-bit, right? But we were all like, oh, they're still doing cartridges. And with the Saturn, it's this new thing with I'm not thinking of Saturn, I'm thinking of Sega CD.
Well, no, the Saturn was CD, and so was the PlayStation. Nintendo, I mean the Sega CD, but that was before. That was.
Was that Gen 4?
The Sega CD, yeah, that was Gen 4.
Oh, okay. Anyway, 64 definitely won out. My special lady friend actually just bought. She messaged me and she was like, "Hey, so I just got a 64," and I was like, "What?" She was like, "Yeah, I got a Nintendo 64." Like, okay, why? She said, "GoldenEye." I was like, "Oh shit!" So we played some GoldenEye, and I'm terrible at that game.
Yeah. I never had an N64. I tried Gold. I could not get my brain around its weird ass controller.
That's the first time. Yeah, dude, that controller's stupid. That's the first time that I think, at least in my experience, that I'd be playing a game and I would look over and you always knew if somebody was a noob because they'd just be spinning, looking at the ceiling.
Yeah, that was my experience. I didn't play it beyond that, just spinning and looking at the ceiling.
Looking at the ceiling.
Like, this game's really dumb, guys.
There's a way the way you held, like, you held the controller an awkward way, kind of off kilter, and that's how you were supposed to hold it.
And
it's kind of like holding your gun sideways a little bit.
Yeah. And all right, so this is going to be a really hot take, but it's a place to say it.
Shit.
If GoldenEye wasn't released on the N64, if it was put on the PC, or if it was released on PlayStation, nobody would be talking about it. That
Really?
game would be forgotten completely. That
What?
game lives and dies by the fact that it is a console that comes natively with 4 controller ports, and it is a perfect party shooter on a system that had nothing like it. But if you stack that game up against first person dominant outside of that,
Like Quake or something?
Quake, Doom, Unreal, even Duke Nukem 3D.
Dude, Duke Nukem 3D was awesome.
You know, that game
Return to Castle fucking Wolf.
Yep.
Yeah.
You put that game up against those games.
Yeah.
Doom is wiping the floor with it. Quake is wiping the floor with it. It got its notoriety because it was the best first person shooter on a system that was built for party play.
Yeah. It's the Halo thing, man. And fucking Halo. Whew. Okay, so that's Gen 5. Gen 6.
Gen 6. Sega Dreamcast. Sega's last gasp.
Oops.
The first Xbox. Nintendo's little purple lunchbox, the GameCube.
Oh yeah, that thing.
And the undisputed Goliath, sales-wise, the PlayStation 2.
PS2, baby.
Yep.
I got hired at. Do you know what Babbage's is? Babbage's Software. You
Oh
remember
yeah,
that?
had a job there. 1997.
Yeah. All right. So I was a little bit later. Babbage's in the mall.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. It was like
GameStop.
99 or 2000. I got hired for the release of the Dreamcast, and it was awesome because it. You know, they're like, it's gonna get so busy, it's gonna be crazy. We had the boxes, you know, and everybody pre-ordered, but like by the end of it all, they're all there. Like nobody fucking bought it. I was like, what are you gonna do with all these, dude? It's like what happens in Star Trek 6. All right, The Undiscovered Country, when they're talking about how what do we do with the Klingon crisis? You know what I'm talking about? You guys know what I'm talking about? And they're like,
Yep.
oh, the Klingons are going to be like the waste of the galaxy. Oh, so saith, Zarathustra. The idea, you would be walking around, look at like a dumpster, and you would just see Dreamcast controllers. I found Dreamcast controllers. I was like, what the fuck is that? Oh, it's a Dreamcast controller. No console in sight. Just controllers that people used for whatever they used. And what happened with the Dreamcast?
Sega's mistakes with the Saturn came back to haunt them, is what it was. Well, okay, 3 things. 1, their mistakes with the Saturn carried over. They had lost a lot of consumer faith because they made so many mistakes with the Saturn. They pissed off so many people. They burned a lot of bridges. So a lot of people were hesitant to jump on. 2, Sega went with a proprietary media format. It wasn't a CD-ROM. It wasn't a G-ROM. I can't remember the name of it, but it was a proprietary format that they developed in conjunction with whoever made it was Philips. The problem was that it was one of the game developers, like an individual guy at one of the games, was disgruntled with his job. He put a README file on the game disc that showed how to crack the copy protection not for the game, for the console.
Oh, no.
All you had to do was whatever was in the, and it wasn't like solder things to the motherboard. It was all software based. It was all something that you could do with like off the shelf shit with your bare hands. So if you knew that, you could pirate the entire library.
Wow.
So, and there was nothing they could do. I mean, this was before, firmware update. So once it got cracked,
internet wasn't really much of a thing.
Right. So once it got cracked, they were screwed. Last thing that killed them was that format in another way, because a year later, PS2 comes out, and PS2 makes the bold choice. to be a DVD drive. At that point, DVD drives were or DVD players were like $1,000 luxury.
Yeah, yeah.
But here's Sony. You could buy a DVD player combo video game system, $300.
Right, right.
What the hell am I gonna do? Why am I buying this shitty Dreamcast? I'm going PS2.
Yeah, that was pretty smart.
Yeah,
and then you were gonna play Tony Hawk too, and think you can ride a skateboard. I know.
Yep.
I know. I know how it is. Okay. We should give some credence to the GameCube and Xbox. I mean, they were rather important.
GameCube, it has a great library. It was Nintendo getting a little. They were thinking that they were smarter. The proprietary format that they used was stupid. Those tiny little discs that was. They had already made a bunch of mistakes. That came back to bite them. No one had confidence in the game. That generation for them was a lot of chickens coming home first. Xbox, you got to hand it to Xbox for really starting the online. The Xbox Marketplace, Xbox Live. It did come in a distant second in that generation sales of the PlayStation 2, but stuff they did laid the groundwork for stuff that is just now baseline expectation for console gaming.
Well, I remember so I was in college at the time, and we were playing Halo, of course, because Halo 2 was gonna come out soon. Anyway, we're sitting there playing Halo 1, loving it, and people would have all these LAN parties, but now they would bring their Xboxes and connect them.
Yep.
Suddenly,
oh wow, I didn't realize you could do that.
Yeah, you actually had to do it. So you had to have an Xbox, and I had to have an Xbox if we wanted to play 4-on-4. Right? So you'd have your squad, and they'd have their squad, and stop looking at my screen, dude. That kind of shit.
Right.
And it was awesome. It was awesome. And then we made I will use your term, bold move. Once did we go online. This mysterious place that we only really used for Napster at the time. We went online to play Halo. We were like, does it work? You hook in the Ethernet cable, and you're like, right. Is it online? Is it on the web? I'm gonna surf cyberspace, right?
Dark web.
And we got tranced.
Oh, sure.
We were good, dude. We were good. These motherfuckers were playing Blood Gulch, because, come on, you play Blood Gulch in Halo. We see, after we're getting decimated, and you have the little Overwatch thing where you're dead and you have the little counter waiting for yourself to spawn in the CTF. And we see these two motherfuckers. They were called, it wasn't Team America, because it was before the movie. It was something like that, though. It was like Captain America or something. And these two dudes were moving in tandem, like a SWAT team. Like the fucking flying Blue Jay people. This is before bots and all that bullshit. They were that good, and they were 12 years old. Fucking right. Captain America, dude. Kicking my ass. And we played twice, and we were like, fuck it. Fuck it. They're so much better. We will never...
That's the difference between, the way we grew up and the way, people with the internet have the ability to just get better because they get more practice with different people and gameplays, and so yeah, of course. What was your first game that you played on the internet? Was that it? The first time you got on the internet and played a video game against other people? Because it sounds like you did what do they call it? Where everybody brings their gear in. There's the term.
A LAN party.
Yeah. So I mean, that was my first experience was in LAN, but outside of LAN, where you actually got on the internet, I would imagine.
Embarrassing, possibly embarrassing admission here. About 2 years ago with Fortnite. Context now. Okay. Now that the shock is wearing off and your brains on. I grew up as an only child, so multiplayer was never a thing for me. I didn't have to share, I didn't have to hand the controller over. So multiplayer at all was rarity. Multiplayer online, by the time that came around, I was in my late 20s, early, it wasn't a thing. So when I had a podcast prior to First Gen Gamers, also the podcast called the Gamer Parent Strategy Guide. And it was all about being a gamers and trying to counsel people in a positive way, rather than the doom and gloom that you see a lot. Video games cause violence and all that shit. So one time I decided to try out Fortnite. Fortnite was really big. This was, I don't know, 2017, 2018. I don't remember when. It was sometime since it became big. So 3 years may have been off, but I wanted to try it because my kids really loved it. And
yeah.
A lot of people were like, the people who didn't like it vehemently hated it. They thought that this thing was like Satan incarnate. And the people who loved it thought that, they were almost like a cult. So I thought, if I'm going to have this podcast where I'm talking about gaming as a parent, I should look into this thing for myself, make my own decision rather than reading an opinion piece or hearing a YouTuber talk about it. So I did. So I downloaded Fortnite and I played it for a few days. Won a solo match. No.
Nice.
No, but won a solo match in my third game, mostly by running. But mostly, I just ran towards the center of the map.
Right.
It's like a lot of running in this game. I am a child of the 70s, so I'm watching this game, and I got motion sick watching some Fortnite just now. I don't know how people do it.
I don't either. I watch my kids play it, especially my youngest. He will erect this Taj Mahal looking building with the building mechanic. And I tried the building mechanic for approximately 7 seconds and went, nope, yeah. I'm done. Run, shoot when necessary.
Buck Mud says Fortnite BR and BR0 build are sick as fuck. I don't know what BR is.
No idea.
He says his son is playing it right now.
Brain retention.
Oh, BR and BR. What? Brain retention? That's not what it is.
I don't know. I made that up.
It was funny. I was talking to, so a lot of my I do a chess podcast called Chess with Bill. Shameless plug. Anyway.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people that I play against on it, it turns out they're rather young. They're 20 and under. Some people 14, 15, 16, some are 10. And they're all really good. Really good at chess. My point. So we're playing these timed games, and every so often, I'm getting trounced, I'm getting destroyed. Every so often, they take a long time to make a move. And they'll pop on the chat and be like, oh, sorry, I was playing Fortnite. So they're literally playing a 10-minute game with me. And in the meantime, playing Fortnite and winning. Both. I don't know, can you cut the balls off enough,
You got to be used to that because, on your own role-playing game podcast, your character sometimes play video games. So, I mean, It's kind of the thing that you do. I mean, maybe you do this to other people.
Maybe I do it to other people. Maybe I'm so boring. What is Generation 7?
Generation 7. Down to 3 consoles. Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, Wii.
And the Wii. Is the Wii a good system? Is it only for boomers?
No. The Wii is a good system. The Wii's bad reputation comes from, yes, old people started buying it because, oh, look, I can and pretend I'm playing golf.
But they like it. I'm not dissing boomers. Okay, they are literally called boomers, and Jen Jones apparently. But it seems like they're the only ones that had the system.
I don't think that's an unfounded thought. It was not a hardcore gamers console. It definitely marked the point where Nintendo said, "We are done trying to compete with the hardcore gaming market. We are going to create our own market. We are going to go after people who won't buy the PlayStation or the Xbox. We're going to pick them and we're going to market." And it was a smart move from a business standpoint. And I use this very loosely with no seriousness whatsoever, from a gamer credibility standpoint. The hardcore people who are either live and die by Halo or Killzone or whatever, Call of Duty or Madden or whatever. Yeah, that system wasn't for them, but there are some damn good games on the Wii. No More Heroes, Mad World, Little King's Story. My favorite Mario game of all time, Super Mario Galaxy, is an immaculate. It is an amazing developed game. It's a damn good system. It just has the unfortunate reputation of being the system that casuals adopted, and as a result, it got a shitload of shovelware.
Right.
And it's hard to find the great games when you have to sort through Horse Designer and Barbie Dreamhouse and and shit like that. When you've got Deal or No Deal, when you've got to get through all of those games to find the diamond in the rough, it sounds like a bad system, but it's not.
Right.
And the Virtual Console, even if for nothing else, the Virtual Console had the NES, the Super Nintendo, the N64, the Master System, the Genesis, the TurboGrafx, the Neo Geo. I forgot to mention the Neo Geo.
The Neo Geo, right?
That was part of Gen 4. The Commodore 64 arcade games. It had a shitload of retro games that retro systems you could play. Yeah, even for that, it was an amazing. It was a great portal as access to video games history. It's a good console. It's just a console that you have to hunt to find the good stuff.
I'm watching the gameplay of I guess Super Mario Galaxy, and I old brain here, but I don't even see how you can navigate through. It's like 3D, all these levels upon levels, and then it looks like you could just walk off accidentally the edge at any time and have to go back to.
I think you could
back to zero. But
you believe it or not, it is actually. I mean, there are certain ledges, yes, where you could fall off into the galaxy, but the gravity physics on it, when you're on a little planetoid, and you can run around it as long as it's a planet, you can run around it in 360 degrees in every this way and horizontally and vertically and diagonally. You could run around that thing. There are boss fights that take place on. You have to track them around it, and it's as much as it looks difficult if you've never played it. Once you're in it, it feels. Yeah, you just sink right into it. It is
the gameplay's really good.
Yeah,
now it is launching from planet to planet. It looks like, and that's pretty impressive.
And it has some of the most beautiful music. Music never doesn't get talked about enough in video games. It has this orchestral score that is simply magical. It is worth listening to on its own, like away from the game.
I've never seen this. It reminds me of when Goku dies. All right, the 360. We're getting to the point where like I don't even know the games. I remember the friends bought the 360, I think, and it was like Gears of War. Is that on the 360?
Yeah.
And I remember that was cool, but I was like, why is everybody,
Several of them. There's like 4 or 5 of them, I think.
I was like, why is everyone like a pro wrestler in this thing? What the fuck is going on? And then the PS3, I don't even know what's on the PS3.
Oh, PS3. So you've got the first 3 games of the Uncharted. You've got The Last of Us.
Oh yeah.
Final Fantasy. There's a few of them on there. Shit. I'm sitting here, but God of War.
God of War.
And God of War Ascension. That one was okay.
When did Assassin's Creed? Which system did that jump out on?
That would be the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about Resident Evil?
The first Resident Evil was PS1 and Saturn. So by the time we were on on Gen 7, Resident Evil 4 was on the GameCube, so Resident Evil 5 and 6 were, I think, they're
terrifying. Oh, Ken, don't show it. Oh my god, it's terrifying.
Metal Gear Solid 4 was on PS3. The finale of the Metal Gear.
PS3, Tiger Woods, golf. Dear God, it was good, says Buckman.
Also, for sports fans, last generation of console games that had a college football game.
Really? This is Generation 7.
Yes.
You know, good, because I hate those games. I remember I go to like my friend's house.
Madden 90. I guess it'd be Madden 20.
What you gotta do in football is run the ball.
I guess he was
you run
not
the ball
anymore.
What you gotta do is make scores and you win. Thank you, John Madden. Okay, so Generation 8. What is it?
PlayStation 4. PS4. This one's a little weird, I should say, before I because Nintendo went really off schedule here. So it's the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, the PlayStation 4 Pro, the Xbox One X, because those were mid-console slight power boosts, and then Nintendo released 2 consoles in this generation: the Wii U and the Switch.
The Switch, which did well.
Yes, and the Wii U, which did the opposite.
Right. I know basically nothing. My nephews are like, look at the Switch! And I'm like, where's the console?
Yeah, where's the rest of it?
It's like 2 halves, and you like chunk together a screen, I think. It's like a Wii, but it's tiny, mixed with a Game Boy that's been fucked. It has amazing graphics. Amazing graphics. Yeah.
Yeah. It is the smartest move Nintendo has made, I will say. I think I'm not saying it is the best console, but I think business-wise it is the smartest move because Nintendo was really having trouble they were having trouble making both tracks matter. Sometimes the home console would be just kicking ass and the portable console was not so good, and then it would flip and the great and the console would smell like hobo butt. So this was their way of going, you know what, it's done, we're marrying the 2 concepts, we're having one track and we're putting all our eggs in the one basket, and it's smart. I've got a Switch. It's not my number 1 console, but the fact that I can play a full-fledged 3D Mario, full-fledged 3D Zelda game, or an RPG like Disco Elysium, a lot of major games. The fact that I can play it both on a TV, but I can also take it to my kids' karate practice and sit there in the lobby and play it while they practice. It's an amazing idea.
That's a Switch. So we can do all of those things. I had no clue.
Yeah.
Do you have to restart the game or save it in between, or can you just yank it out and be playing the whole time?
You can yank it and be playing the whole time. You can sit there on the couch, be playing it, disconnected, have it connected to, and have the controllers in your hand, and then you can walk up, slide the controllers into the sides of the screen, because the screen is a little bigger than a tablet, and it sits in this cradle that kind of. You can slide the controllers onto the side of it, pick the whole damn thing up, and the game just transfers onto the screen that's built into the console, and you can just play it seamlessly.
Is that why? This is a rather vapid question, or maybe obvious. Is that why it's called a Switch?
Yep.
I see. Switch it up.
Buck Mud says, my eldest kid plays Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, whatever it's called, on the wall screen, and Link is like 2 feet tall.
On the wall screen?
Yeah, apparently there's a wall screen.
Like a progressive projector.
A projector. Yeah, projector. Yeah, apparently it's really good. There's a Switch Lite.
Yeah, the Switch Lite is the controllers don't come off. They're built into the system, so it is. You could still play it on the TV, but it is really more designed on the go.
I see.
Whereas, like, it's dedicated to being on the go. Whereas the Switch, the regular Switch, it is much more functional to do both.
Wow. Okay. Generation 9. How many generations are there?
That's it. Generation 9 is the last generation.
Okay.
That's where we are currently. It is the PlayStation. It is the PlayStation 5. It's the Xbox Series. They don't have an easy way to say it because there's the Series S and there's the Series X, and the only difference between them is disk drive. So the Xbox Series.
Right.
And there will be a new console for Nintendo, I believe, next year. The rumors are either late this or sometime next. And it is going to be the successor, currently being called the Switch 2, but that's just a rumored name.
The Switch potentially 2. Whoa. Yeah, dude. Jesus, I didn't know much of that. At all.
Just blew my mind. And it's been interesting kind of like hearing you talk through these different generations, and just in the course of the last half hour seeing the quality of graphics and movement, and you're really like there's some really beautiful imagery,
Rise of the Ronin looks awesome.
And from all generations too. Like, there are games that are 30 years old that graphically can just take your breath away with what they do. Storylines that are deep. There's, I'm sure, Final Fantasy VII, for instance. Everyone, everyone's played Final Fantasy.
I haven't played it, but I saw the images of it, and they were coming out with films at that time, and that was the animation, right?
Right.
Where it looked so realistic.
Yeah. And spoilers for a game that's almost 30 years old. One of the main characters, Aerith, permadies. Like, she doesn't just die and you bring her back with a resurrection spell or anything. She dies as part of the storyline, and she's dead. Done. You can't bring her back. It's a narrative point. Well, that was done in another role-playing game 5 years before that, called 2, that was on the Genesis.
What was it called?
Phantasy Star 2, but fantasy is spelled with PH.
As you do.
As you do, yeah. Preceding the whole fat with PH by like a decade.
Where it's come from. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was done, in my opinion, I think it was done better. It was the character that was killed off in Phantasy Star 2 had a deeper storyline. She had more of a personality. And again, that was on a 16-bit. The character was, about as tall as a match. But it had phenomenal writing. It had, this beautiful moving story of and it was tragic when she dies. Gaming from with the exception of the first generation, I will say the first generation is so primitive. It just has there's nothing like it. It is so far removed from what gaming. But once you start getting to second gen and especially third on, you can find something amazing, whether it is graphically, musically, or story, and certainly gameplay. You could find something beautiful every generation.
Wow. That's really wild. It's a lot more robust, like you were saying. Well, you were talking about how the difference of old movies and new movies, when it really comes down to it, there's not that great of a change. Whereas with these, robust is the wrong word. The change is much more dramatic. But it does seem like there's a throughput, playability, or gameplay, music, storyline, this kind of thing. I'll say.
Yeah, the base elements don't change. The base elements are always the same. It's just gaming. Gaming's kind of like Taco Bell. They only have the same 5 damn ingredients. They just keep remixing them, but it's how they remix. Gameplay's the same thing. It's 4 things that you mentioned, but it's how you execute them. And there are ways in every generation where those 4 elements are executed just amazingly. I mean, I've been excited by games. I've been scared by games. There have been games that have made me cry. Literally, like, I get emotional.
Halo 4. I loved that game. Speaking of, do these generations of games, is it consoles only?
So, yes, I will say that tentatively. I got into an argument on social media with PC gamers about this.
Oh my god, really? On the social media?
I know, arguments on social media in the gaming community?
In the gaming community?
They're the most passive people.
Tolerant.
Yeah,
tolerant.
Equal rights.
Equal rights.
One big kumbaya campfire single.
Yeah, no, it's
very accepting of a
accepting of every idea and thought that you could possibly.
And they like discussion. They they like it when you have
compromise, especially. Yeah.
Oh my god, compromise.
Oh yeah. It's hard to say that there are generations in PC gaming only because there isn't clean-cut borders. Like with the console generations, let's take the third generation for example. While the time, while they're all clustered in a group, Nintendo Entertainment System, the Sega Master System, the Atari 7. Boom, done. There's your 3. Those things had lifespans. They ended. Here's the next generation. Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo. With computers, there's always new graphics cards. There's, the RAM increases, the hard drive increases, the quality of the monitors, especially the 80s and 90s, definitely.
Yeah.
Of a wider variety. Now it's all flat screen and whatnot, but there just isn't that clean cut. This is when this type of hardware was dominant because it
Mm.
upgrades so constantly.
Mm.
So where do you start drawing the line is the issue.
Could you do it in terms of like, it seems like to me, for example, there's a pretty clear delineation between like EverQuest and, as Buck Mud was saying, World of Warcraft. Like, WoW was a whole, not just community, like period of time. EverQuest was a period of time, you know, and then after that, whatever the fuck people did, you know, or like with RTSs, like, you know, Command and Conquer, the Red Alert era, right? And then you move on to the next thing. Is that possible, or?
Yeah, and
Go ahead.
go ahead. I was just gonna say, you know, World of or Warcraft and Red Alert being, and even like GTA 1 and 2 being that top-down world. I totally interjected. I totally interrupted what Will was gonna say, but I'm very curious about this. Do they make any games like that top-down anymore? Is that a thing?
Oh yeah, you can go on. So PC has like they all have digital libraries now. All the consoles do, and PC does. PC has a number of digital storefronts: Steam, Epic Game Store, and GOG, which stands for Great Old Games. You can buy. I mean, the industry has opened up now. Are now available to purchase to you and me and your neighbor down the street. Sure, the games that you and I make, shitty, and Rockstar or Capcom or Konami makes, because they're billion-dollar conglomerate and a guy operating out of a garage. But
Sure.
there are single-player games, single-person developed games.
Sure.
2 people developed games, 4 people.
Yeah, my buddy,
and they put
he wrote one called a Robot Named Fight, and it did really well.
Yeah,
and it was basically Metroid spinoff. But,
yeah, and things like the Steam storefront allow independent gamers or independent games to put a game out on there. One of the biggest indie games, role-playing game, that was, when did Undertale come? 8-9 years ago, say, decade, give or take. One guy developed every part of it: the gameplay, the graphics, the music, the story. He did everything, coded it in his basement, if I'm not mistaken. He's been working on the sequel, Deltarune, for the better part of 5-6 years. He's a one-man army, and there's plenty of, and there's a ton of. So it really broadens the scope of what games are, and I kind of think, to tie it back to the whole generation, that kind of helps blur the line, make it even more difficult to say where lines might be. You could kind of use the kind of games, but it, like, you've got the very early era. That is a cleanly defined era. But then you start going, okay, well, they came about in the early 90s, but they're still around. So when does that cut off? You know, when do you start cutting things off? EverQuest and WoW are definitely 2 completely different, you know, EverQuest is primitive compared to WoW, but they're still fairly similar in execution. They're both online, massive multiplayer online games. So do you start before EverQuest and you lump all those together, and then where do you stop? Like,
I don't think it has to do with the technology, right? I mean, it does, but the way that I have thought about it, so this isn't an argument, it's simply the way I've thought about it. Like, when people played MUDs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the text-based games, and then they were playing the RTSs, and then there was sort of this, oh, we can do that online, so you have the RTSs online, but it's kind of the same difference. Oh, and then you have like WoW, so it's a 3D MMOG, RPG, whatever the fuck, LOTOR, Warhammer, etc., etc. Like, there's a fluidity of the technology and the graphics and such, because some of those games are like, WoW is what, 20 years old?
Something like that, yeah.
So it's improved through technology, and in the different drops. But like, those communities can tell you, oh yeah, when whatever of the Shadow Lord dropped when I was 15, and we were all, and like it was in that zeitgeist. I was really trying to not use that word, but it does kind of seem that way.
I can get where you're going, and I don't disagree to an extent. Like, I think you can use that as kind of a way to measure PC gaming into generation, but there's, again, it's those lack of hard borders where, and with PC gaming also, you had competing things that were zeitgeisty. So RTSs like Command and Conquer were really big at the same time that Doom. So you're going to have a lot of era over, I guess, would be, I don't think you'll be able to cleanly say the fourth generation of PC gaming, the fifth generation. I think it's more kind of like just these overlapping eras that bleed into each other and bleed over each other.
Right. Because when I was in college, for example, everybody, save me, played WoW. Everybody. They all did.
Yep.
Buck Mudd was talking about wanting to get a Horde tattoo, but he didn't get one.
Well, that's
and like, huh?
I said smart move.
Yeah.
And then people like straight up, they'll be like, "Oh, are you a gamer?" I'm like, "Well, kind of. I play ttrpgs." And they're like, "Oh, are you Horde or Alliance?" And I'm like,
What?
Horde." And I only know that. And like, oh, you're Horde. We're cool. Like, what? And it's this massive community that all knows the same thing. So it's like a fan base, right? Maybe that's what it is. It's more about fan bases and those movement of generations.
I could agree with that. Yeah, I think that's probably a little more, if you're going to be able to divide PC gaming into groups, time periods, whatever. I think fan bases and how they interact and how long they last might be the easier way to do it. Before,
Right,
like the early days are different,
sure,
because there was a lot of rare specificity. But once you get to like the mid '90s, you got to go with, I think fan bases probably the least messy way.
Well, when people are like into TV shows, right? Or sci-fi stuff, or specifically TV shows, anime and such. They're all, oh, you're into anime, but I'm into this, you're into that. Or, if you go to like Dragon Con or something, and there are these little geeky communities, and they definitely have a kind of generational thing. Like me, I'm like, people are like, oh, what are you into? I'm like, I'm a fucking brown coat dude. What the fuck? Come on. You know what I am. Firefly all the way. Some people are into the BSG stuff, and all that is old. Last time with the Dragon Con, people were dressed up as Farscape. Did you ever watch Farscape?
No, I know of it.
And
but I
Browder,
never watched
baby.
it.
Oh, absolutely. Living ship. I mean, how and then the crossover with Farscape and I didn't mean to do
SG1
that.
and
And SG1, like, it was
Claudia
brilliant. I
Black.
loved it. It was
What?
so, like, I had a crush on Claudia Black. She was
Gigi
the best.
Edgley. Oh my god.
The best.
Are you kidding
Wow.
me? Are you kidding me? I was at Dragon Con. I met Gigi Edgley. Beautiful, beautiful woman. The accent, the whole thing. And I had watched all of Farscape. It's campy as shit. I love the show though.
Sure.
Anyway, I'm sitting there talking to her, and I'm like, oh yeah, blah blah blah. My friend at the time, who had not seen it at all, she started hitting on him, and I was like, no, he doesn't even know your character's name.
Because he was probably very attractive.
Well, he's Shut up, Ken.
I mean, not to say that you're not attractive, but I mean, I've had this experience like before where like I'm standing in a room and I'm with my friend who's very attractive and I don't exist. Like I'm talking, but it feels like I shouldn't talk because, you know,
I think what it was this guy, you know, he has merits. I'll give him that. he helped me create a tabletop role playing game.
yeah.
He
Yeah,
has merits. That is a very carefully worded
he
sentence.
has merits. Yeah, we went and talked to, speaking of Firefly, the dude, I can't remember his name. The dude who played Shepherd Book. You remember his name? Ah, fuck. What's his name? I feel so bad. Let's see. Who played Shepherd Book? Did you guys know what I'm talking about?
No,
Did you watch Firefly?
no.
I'm watching it right now.
It's
We're watching it right now. Claudia Black and the guy, I can't remember.
No, Claudia Black wasn't in Firefly.
Oh, Firefly. I thought we were talking about
Ron
Farscape.
Glass.
Oh.
Ron Glass. Really good actor. Huge, man. This guy is enormous. I met him. His head was like, the big guy like shook his hand. He's huge, like rough hands, tough guy. And I was so happy to see this guy because I had been told that he had died of cancer. And I was like, holy shit. Whoa. So I roll up to Ron Glass and I'm like, Ron Glass. And at these cons, you know, when you go up to the table, yeah, you can just talk to the people, but actually they're trying to sell you, you know, their autograph or the pictures and all this stuff.
Right.
And so they kind of expect that. And I don't have any money, so I'm like, I'm not interested in that. I just want to meet him. So I'm like, what's your name? Look up at the thing. I just see Shepherd Book. Holy shit. See his name, Ron Glass. Oh my God. I'm so happy to see you. He's like, oh, it's great to see a fan. I'm like, I thought you were dead. Turns out he did have cancer.
Oh.
And died not long after.
Oh.
That's not the worst.
I was like, Ron Glass, I thought you had cancer and died, man. I'm so glad you're here. This friend of mine, by the way, the one who, you know, is cute and like whatever, and Gigi Edgley loved him. Right. I turn because I see Ron Glass's face. He's like, you know, get the fuck away from me. I'm going to strangle you with my bare hands. I turn to see where my friend is. That motherfucker's ghosted, dude. He is gone. He's way the fuck over there, like looking at something, doing the
Yeah.
Should have known then. Should have known then. Ron Glass hated my guts. Shepherd Book, my favorite character, aside from Malcolm Reynolds, of course, hated my guts. And he fucking died. I think he's dead.
Well, I mean, people dead again. They made a movie, dead again.
He's dead again. I'm gonna see him again. Ron Glass. Oh my God! I could have sworn you hated me.
On multiple occasions, I thought you died.
Yeah, he died in 2016. It was seriously like 2 years later.
Yeah. Everybody dies. That's the thing.
Yeah.
To be
He died-
human is to die.
Well, I mean, you guys can die. It's fine. It's whatever. Claudia Black, Buck Mud says, heart, fire.
Hard fire.
Soupy
fire.
Jones is on.
What's
saying
up,
hello.
Soupy?
What's up, Soup? Yeah,
Watching
anyway.
Firefly.
So we've
I
got
like the engineer the most. That was my favorite.
Callie.
Firefly. Yeah.
Yeah, she's cool as shit.
They did her wrong. I think they did her wrong in that show. I was towards the end of the season.
How'd
Is
they
it
do
okay
it
to
wrong?
spoil on this?
I mean, hey, watch Firefly, y'all.
Yeah.
Although,
I just-
although Jed hasn't seen it,
Yeah.
I
so-
have seen it. I just.
you don't remember
Might lose equal credit. No, it's not that I don't remember it. I couldn't get into it.
Yeah.
it. Really?
Yeah, it for whatever reason it just didn't stick.
Oh wow. Well,
Cowboys in space, no good. Oh, you
So-
don't like Star Wars, so.
So
No,
yeah.
Maybe-
So what's the deal with Star Wars? Why? How can you possibly have
Not
any
love
issue?
episode 1.
Any issue with episodes 7, 8, and 9? How could you possibly have issues with those?
because I read Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, and The Last Command, and they were so much fucking better.
Are you referring to the Timothy Zahn?
Yes, those
Indeed.
are episodes 7, 8, and 9. I don't know what Disney made. Disney made high budget fan fiction, but that ain't Star Wars.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fan fiction. I hate those movies. I like the first one I saw with my brother and my mother, and it was like a family. You know, obviously it was a family thing. The dad had passed on. He fucking died. So we as a family were doing this thing. We're seeing fucking Star Wars. And when Han Solo dies, I look over at my mom, who's not a Star Wars fan, okay? She's just a mom. And she kind of looks at me and she's like, what? And I was like, what the fuck is going on with Han Solo? What are you doing? I liked Rey at that time. And they just ruined it. They ruined all of it. They ruined it.
Yeah.
It's fan fiction.
Hey,
Awful.
so the only one of the movies that I like is, I think Rogue One is a really
Rogue's
well
great.
done movie because it feels so much different.
Yeah, sure.
Solo is boring.
Sure, it's awful. It's awful.
The combination of The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi pissed me off so much. I still have not seen
You haven't seen what?
the episode 9, whatever it is, Rise of
No.
Skywalker, whatever.
No.
Rise
And
of
I-
Rey.
Yeah, and I really, there's a part of me that feels like I should watch it. It's that
Really?
way I've completed I mean, just because out of
No.
a completionist's, kind of, I've seen all the others. I feel like I should watch it. But
Well-
even people who I know who were apologists for every other Star Wars movie, like even people who said Solo have nothing good to say about Skywalker. And when they can't even defend that, like, oh, that's a bad sign.
Sure, I could defend it in saying that it was, the visual effects are great. It was like a roller coaster. If you're not paying that much attention to the plot, I sent Bill Bunkum a clip the other day that really drives, I guess, my point home is that people aren't watching movies the way they watched movies in the past. They're on their phone doing something else. So if you make it too complicated,
Second screen is what it was called, right?
yeah, second screen or whatever. If you make something too complicated, people aren't going to get into it because they're not
Paying attention.
Yep.
They're not paying attention. So it doesn't matter what is on there, really. And I guess it's we're in the shit phase of film at this point, and it comes across that way. Like we don't make movies anymore that are complex. I mean, even Dune. I saw Dune in the theater.
I didn't see the second.
I loved it. It was an incredible film, but it's not complicated. I mean, I've read the book. I think the Sci-Fi Channel version was the best so far, but it's 16 hours long versus
Right.
1 hour. And I did enjoy the David Lynch version. There's nothing wrong with the new film. It's not complicated. And if anything, the new film to me had some intense moments because they pulled a bunch of stuff out and went with emotional things a little bit instead of trying to delve into too much
The politics.
anything that happened in
The fluid dynamics of sand.
Yeah, right.
I was listening to it wasn't a podcast, this prior to that stuff, a recording, I guess, an interview with not Robert Heinlein. What's his name? Who wrote Dune. Fuck.
Herbert
Frank
Walker.
Herbert?
Herbert.
Frank Herbert.
Frank Herbert. Thank you. With Frank Herbert, and they were asking. They were like, is the dude with the accent, like the 1960s accent? He's like, so Frank Herbert, why'd you write Dune? Okay, see, that's not how he sounded at all, but it's something like that. And Frank Herbert was like, well, let me tell you. He says, it's all about. He was interested in sand dunes, specifically, the fluid dynamics of sand dunes, so how they move. And apparently, I'm regurgitating this information from Frank Herbert. Apparently, he started researching, like he was interested in like how these dunes move, and the way that scientists think about them is like water, like they move. And I have not read the book because I'm illiterate, right? My brother has read the book, and I could swear he mentions that in the book it describes all the fluidity and how the sand moves. That's where the whole motherfucker comes from. He's like, he's interested in the sand dunes. The whole thing. That's it.
I think he's interested in religion. And
did they take that out, or did they keep that in?
I think they did it better. And this, I think if Dune does anything really well, this iteration,
sand.
It's not this. Well, I mean, the sand is probably the best in this film, better than previous films. But I think that the I don't want to give anything away, but I think that I'm not going to.
I know he is. He is the Kwisatz Haderach.
Yeah,
I know. I know. Could it be?
It's about building a god.
The Kwisatz Haderach. I know all of that.
They do that the best in this version. It's like it's more meaningful because he's more immersed in the culture, and whereas previous versions,
he's just white.
He's like he's a white dude.
And Sean Young, while Sean Young can do no wrong until she does, she's pretty white. The Bedouins are not particularly white. Buckmud says Dune is about change in all forms. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, generational stuff. That was a big question I had for you. I had a question about retro gaming.
All right.
So the ttrpg community, call it old school gaming, but that has its own meaning, right?
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck is retro gaming?
Kind of a sliding scale at this point, because that barrier of where retro starts is kind of
moving,
extending. Yeah. I recently heard someone say almost been 20.
Say that all again.
I'm like, so I heard that the PlayStation 3, the Xbox.
Oh no, your mic went out again.
I heard. Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Keep looping in and out.
That's weird. I heard someone say that the PS3, the Wii, and the 360 are retro.
The PS3?
Yeah.
Wow.
I can't agree with that. Just because they were released 18 years ago, no.
No, that is a generation.
You can play Rock Band on the PlayStation 3, like our Guitar Hero. That was on PlayStation 3. If you can be a Guitar Hero, that shit never gets old.
Right, but at the same time, 20 years. I don't. It's hard to say, but I don't really care for the term retro gaming, only because I think retro kind of hangs a this is old hat And yeah, it happened. These games came out a while ago, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years ago. But old doesn't mean bad. Old just means it happened a while ago. I mean, Black Sabbath is 50 years old. Their albums are timeless. Hitchcock movies, came out. Psycho came out in 19. It's still a landmark horror movie. So retro, I don't know. The word to me is a little bit empty.
Well, and we're still. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, we're barely in. Like, film's only 100 years old. Like, video games are what, 60, like, or 50, in people's houses. And we barely had television, color television for like 60 years or something like that. This has all happened in our lifetime, and if not in our lifetime, it's happened in our parents' lifetime. In our lifetime, like my father, I don't think they had a TV.
Right. That
was what they did, was they had a radio, and even though television had been around prior to that by some degree, so we've gone in our lifetime where kids played outside to playing in video games, and it almost being dangerous to have kids play. Did your kids play outside growing up, or did they play more games?
They played outside more when they were younger. 7, 8, 9, 10. But as they got their own game systems, and as they got older, they got in their teenage years, that changed, especially with gaming and the online focus becoming so prevalent, and online gaming community, and it becoming a communication tool. Especially 2020 during the pandemic, during the shutdown.
Sure.
Yeah, during the shutdowns. That's how my kids kept in contact with friends, was Fortnite. They couldn't see their friends, but they could talk to their friends, and that has become so much more central. So going outside just isn't a priority anymore.
And do you think it, as it sounds, because I've never really got on there and chatted, I've never actually had that ability. It's not a goal of mine, but to put on a headset and to play video games and communicate with other people, is that replaced the idea of going to a coffee shop or going to the mall? And remember when you were young, you're like, what do we do? I don't know, let's go to the mall. I mean, you can only
literally nothing else to do.
So long.
Or the Walmart.
Well, I mean, there was a movie called Mallrats. I mean, that was that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, that was a thing. Does gaming replace that?
I don't know that it replaces it wholesale, but I think it is reorganized the priority of it. I think that is the primary communication vector at this point. You meet up with your buddies and you squad up. Whatever game, doesn't matter. Call of Duty, Roblox, whatever. That is where you meet with your friends, and while you're there, you go, "Hey, Insidious sequel. Oh no, hey, you want to go see that Friday?" And then then they might go to the mall or go to dinner or something. But video games and the online life become the de facto way of youth communicating now.
Sure. Like, I remember talking on the phone with girls as a teenager.
Yep.
And like my mom couldn't call in. Nobody could call in. I think we had call waiting, and it would beep over, and they'd call, and like, depending on how good the call, it's like, I might take it, I might not take it. So is it primarily do both male and female players play?
Yeah.
Games?
Oh yeah. Get the stereotype of gamers being all male and all, overweight, basement dwelling, afraid of girls, nerds. That's long since passed. Gaming is now much more mainstream. Now, do girls make up a huge chunk? No, it is not 50-50. Not even remotely. It is still a predominantly male-oriented business, and a predominantly male-oriented audience. But the amount of it's no longer 91 either. Is, I don't know, 65-35 maybe, 60-40 maybe. But yeah, they're just as. I mean, one of my twins, his girlfriend, they met on gaming. They met through Roblox. So.
Okay.
My wife, she didn't grow up with playing video games nearly as much as I did, but if we sit down to play a video game, I can tell you, she killed, like, if she put her mind to it, she, like, speedrunners. She massacres the game. Yeah, there's, it's, like I said, it's not even, but it's come closer to balance over the years.
And certainly depending on the game, maybe.
No, not even.
Not
You'll
even.
find. I mean, okay, yeah. If it's a particularly male orient, like a game with strong male stereotypes, like macho alpha male asshole type, it is a womanizer, swilling jackass. Okay, yeah, that probably isn't gonna hit with a lot of girls, but there's just as many women playing Call of Duty now. I mean, that they're playing that. They're playing that just as much as they might be playing. The market has, especially now, there's so many games that have create a character as part of it. So if the character isn't already a female, you can create your own and have female representation in there, or non-binary.
It's an interesting idea there. So in games where you could choose what character you wanted to play, usually fighting games when I was coming up, I almost always played the girl character.
Yeah.
And it's not because I'm a girl. I wanted to look at the girl character more, I guess. And I also like their storyline better. I've always really enjoyed female protagonists, such as like Ellen Ripley, an Alien, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yep.
Wonder Woman, my favorite DC person. And there's a slew of reasons. It's not all because I'm interested in women, right? But I've noticed, and I've been told, I should say, by people that play WoW, going back to that, I'm like, oh, so is it kind of that way? Like, dudes play dudes, girls play or women play women, non-binary plays whatever non-binary characters, and people have been like, no, that's not it at all. My girlfriend at the time, who was really big into WoW, was like, oh, if there's a female character, almost always it's a dude. And I was like, really? That's wild. She's like, yeah, you can look at their accoutrement and figure out, oh, that's probably a girl, or that's probably a guy, or that's probably, someone else or whatever. So there's like a culture about it, I know it's sort of a tangent going on about what you're saying. I find it interesting, though, the idea of inclusivity. If a game is attempting to be inclusive, right? So it seems reasonable to say, okay, well, you have a world or a character builder, and you can make your character look however you want. But here's the thing. If I'm shorter than I want to be, and I'm not as buff as I want to be, what kind of character am I going to make? I'm probably going to make a big, massive, rippling muscles dude with a dick, or whatever the fuck it is. like this
Right.
fucking hog, hanging around, swinging my fucking 6-foot dildo, beating the shit out of people, whatever it is. Just like in D&D, I'm going bald and I'm, in my 40s and all this shit. What's the guy that I'm gonna play? Okay, you see this dude, he's got this full head of hair. Oh my god. Sarah's like floating in the wind, and he's got this fucking 27 pack. Oh! Right? Like, is it actually representation is where I'm going.
Dude, I'm not even sure if I can answer the question.
Yeah, we're getting into the danger zone.
I don't know, to be honest. I can tell you what I do typically if there's a creative character. I usually create a woman.
Interesting, Jed.
Because it's more, because you don't see all that many women protagonists. Because it's different from the norm. Like you were saying about, if you're going to make a guy character, you're going to make the idealized version. Buffer, taller, you're Fabio's hair, you're going to have all that shit. And I would do the same thing. Buffer, taller, muscular, etc.
Right.
But if I'm going to be a woman, that's a blank slate. It's no longer an idealized version of me. I now get to create a character from the bottom up. It's not like if I create a male character, I'm always even if I don't try, I'm accidentally defaulting to my same beard. But if I'm creating a woman, sky's the limit. I can do anything I want.
Or you're creating you as a woman.
The way I would see it, I mean, as messed up as it is if I created a character like this, I would probably choose a woman, but because I'm a dirty old man, and so I think I'd prefer to look at the
woman's ass.
Picture perfect
woman's ass. I mean, if you're running for like 4 or 5 hours,
or anything, but it's just kind of the nature of things.
I will freely admit that, like Saints Row, the game that I was talking about earlier with the 6-foot dildo ball bat, that has a creative character, and I will freely admit that my character is like a 6-foot tall woman with an hourglass figure and tits like watermelon.
But that's what I'm saying. So that's not inclusivity.
But I don't dress her like a prostitute. She's dressed in nice clothes. She's dressed kind of like she's usually dressed like a complete total badass.
I know.
Like
when I make my female characters, they look like whores. Okay. Whore. I want everybody to know.
No. So are
there actually any female gamers? That's what I'm getting at. Because you go online, you're like, oh, there's a bunch of chicks on here. Are they really chicks?
No, yeah, said they were 35-40%. I bet we could even Google it. We could.
I actually am Googling it.
There, I mean, maybe my numbers could be off. I could be.
We're guesstimating. It's fine.
Yeah,
but the gamer female gamers are like a big, part of being online. It seems like you just half the Google searches I make
on Twitch
or on YouTube during the show. The representation of people of women having YouTube podcasts, playing video games, and then talking at the time. It seems like there is a
YouTube podcast.
Yeah, like Twitch? When they talk. Because I was looking through all the different game systems. They'll talk gameplay. They'll gameplay through a game.
No, they're legitimate gamers, and that's a wall that girl gamers or non-standard gamers, women, to be politically whatever, non-stereotypical gamers have got to break through, right? The stereotype that you are, well, you look like us, fellas. That's.
I think
we are kind of ticking some boxes right now.
Yeah, we're definitely ticking a few boxes.
I think female gamers though also do have a challenge, and you may not see them represent. They may not stand up for their own representation and make themselves as vocal as much, because they have to fight a lot of perceptions.
Right, they can't just play the game.
yeah, either they're the gamer girl, which means like, oh yeah, COD, you know, they're either perceived to be a cliche or they're perceived to be overly sexual. I'm playing games to get attention. Look how hot my boobs are, or something.
Right.
Or even if they're serious, okay, yeah, but you're just a girl. You know,
Yeah.
There's no winning, is what you're saying. It doesn't matter.
Right.
They can't win.
Yeah. They're fighting all of these.
There's a lot of misogyny.
Like you said,
in it.
yeah, there's a lot of misogyny. So there's kind of this fight. Do you really want to stand up and say, yeah, I'm a girl,
So when you run across, or you know, if you hear your teenage boys playing a video game, and you overhear like a misogynistic terms, or like do they ever talk back? I mean, is there a sort of an expectation of I guess,
like, what do I
decency?
expect from
know.
like what do I expect
Yeah.
from them? Well, I mean, my wife and I have done our best to raise our boys to understand that women aren't a lesser sex. Women aren't, you know, there's women deserve the same respect that a guy gets. We are equal. We are human. You know, you take off the skin, you get down to the skeleton. We're the same damn thing. So we've done our best to make sure that they understand that, and they do. They don't, you know, they are not misogynistic in any way. The one of the two teenagers has a girlfriend. He's borderline afraid to hold hands. Like
that's a whole nother thing. Yeah.
It is, but his is more about gentlemanly. He really
cool.
does not want the girl to feel pressured. He wants to be
That's what I'm talking about. Actually.
Yeah, he wants to be an upstanding, sweet boyfriend.
Right.
So, yeah, when they hear misogyny, when they hear racism, when they hear sexism, all of that stuff, they're not fans of it. They have no problems flipping back at people, reporting people. You know, I tell them, just don't bother talking to them. Just report them or put them on mute, because
even while they're gaming.
Yeah.
So are there actions that you can do if somebody's acting up, saying just awful, terrible things, because you get a bunch of teenagers together?
That's
kind of what they do.
Teenagers aside, you get a bunch of people.
Oh yeah, people. I guess people in general.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you absolutely can. All of the major console, and I don't know about PC because I'm not really as well versed in that, but I play on all of the console makers, Sony, Nintendo, and of behavior that is acceptable and not acceptable. And a further step, the game developers have their own behavioral policies of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. So it's a two-step. There's two different layers to it. So if you go in a COD library or lobby or Fortnite or whatever, and you start, you know, all women are whores, racism and anti-LGBTQ stuff, and you start spouting on, you can report them to both parties. They could get penalized. They could get a temporary ban, you know, like a 1 day, depending on it depends on the severity and how frequent it is. But it could be a temporary ban. It could be a permanent ban for either the game or the console.
Wow.
You could get your online access just completely shut off, and congratulations, you're playing at home by yourself. So, is the quality of that mod? How is the quality of it? It's done by humans.
It's probably no better or worse than Facebook or YouTube.
It is. There's.
I mean,
you get a lot of repeat offenders, people who say, stupid shit. They get a 1 day ban, come back. They stupid shit. They get a 1. It depends on the moderator, just like you said, like Facebook, Twitter, or anything.
Yeah.
So on my chest thing, every so often I'm surprised. I'm becoming less and less surprised People will jump on the chat, and what'd you say again?
I know it was me laughing.
Oh,
It was me.
every so often on the chat, someone will be like, "Hey, Bill, what's the difference between a whatever and a whatever?" And it's out of nowhere, and it'll be something that is overtly just bigotry in some form, and it's done in jest. Because they're like commiserating, hey, what's up, blah blah blah, hey, check it out. And I'm always like, I don't get it. Like I don't understand the normalization of it. It's a cultural thing. Now, of course, YouTube stops a lot of the words. Of course, people say the words backwards, or they'll use leet speak for what is obvious.
Right.
So we can censor, we can ban, we can do all these things, but really the issue is the culture. And it's an even more complicated thing because it's not American and culture and the melting pot of America, whatever you want to define that as. It's cultures all around the world. A lot of the people that are on my stream, they're foreigners, as in they are not Americans, I should say, because I'm streaming at a time that they're awake and most Americans are not. So there's the cultural aspect. Some of these places they come from, it's perfectly fine to say what they're saying.
Right.
So where is my question in here? What do you think about all of that? What is your opinion on it? Good, bad, ugly, etc.
I don't tolerate any of that. The racism, the misogyny, that shit. I don't. That is a major factor. I play online is aside from the fact that I just like the player experience and solving the game like a puzzle. The exposure to the toxicity. I don't want it. I don't have time for it. I don't get anything out of essentially dick measuring contest and having a 10-year-old tell me how gay I am.
Right.
I don't need that. And that's disgusting. Solve it.
Wait,
I don't know that you...
Wait, what? Just for clarity's sake, what is disgusting? I know what you mean, but anyone who's listening halfway, second screen style, what is disgusting about the 10-year-old telling you you're gay?
Well, everything is disgusting about 10-year-olds in general. So when they open their mouth just to speak, it's disgusting, if you ask me. But I digress.
True. Using gay as an insult is what I mean.
Right.
Of course. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. It is not an insult. It is what a person is.
And I know that. I just want to make sure that the second listeners are like, right. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I phrased it poorly the first time around.
No, you phrased it fine. You phrased it fine. It's just that people love to interpret things the way they want to hear it.
Yes. I didn't give it enough context. I think that would be it. But yeah, it's
you're fine.
I don't know that you can put this particular toothpaste back in the tube is the problem. I don't, because the only hope that I could see, I will try to with the proliferation of social media and the interconnectivity and the online communication in gaming, and anything really, just the vehicle of being able to is causing these cultures to blur and to merge and to synthesize with one another. I can't think of in the first British slang before. I didn't know what bollocks meant, or that the trunk of a car was called a boot. But in the past 20 years, I've heard British slang out the ass in public. I'm in Michigan, and I'm hearing British slang from non-British speaking people because and that's not incredibly removed from American culture, but just saying that's just language that's just bleeding together. As cultures start to bleed together, I would hope that some of these things that are culturally based, these prejudices that, you know, are rooted in culture, might get weeded out over generations. The problem is we're not going to be alive to see that.
I mean, you guys won't. I'm gonna live to be like 305, so it'll be a while. Got a lot of time.
So you briefly talked about satanic panic earlier, and Bill and I we were in and of the age of that sort of in the 80s and 90s. I certainly was, and
I remember it. Yep.
I was into industrial music, and
I was into Satan,
Dungeons and Dragons. I love Satan quite a bit as
Hail
well.
Satan.
Hail Satan.
So is there a panic? I mean, like games like Call of Duty are very violent. I mean, are people getting PTSD, or is there a violence
PTSD,
a training? Yeah, because you're fighting this war, this constant war. You know, I realize it's not real, but you've got realistic sounds and like you're in a hunt for things, or is it not real enough yet to really be traumatizing to people who play that a lot?
So there has been the video game violence causes real life consequence argument for about 30 years now. Mortal Kombat was pretty much the the thing that lit the match, so to speak. Ever since then, you throw a stone and you'll find some touching more. Video games cause violence. That can be disproven in so many different ways. There's been numerous medical institutions published in medical that there is no causal. You could chart game like there's a YouTuber MatPat who ran a show called Game Theory on YouTube, which was it started off as an exploration fan lore, but he started bringing science in, and there was an episode where he was talking about video game violence, and one of the things that he showed was a data point. He got the crime statistics from the National Bureau of Crime Prevention, dating from 2000 to forward, and he picked 2000 because that was the year PS2 came out, the number one selling 141 million units. So he started there with game sales, because that's when gaming really went mainstream, and crime. Console sales go like up. Crime, violent crime, has gone down for 25 years. Has gone down for 25 years. Murder's gone down. Rape's gone down. Burglary's gone down. Arson's gone down. All of them have gone down. If there was a causal link between video games and violent behavior, you wouldn't see the numbers go down. You'd see them go up.
Is it Tipper Gore that I'm thinking of that had the whole thing?
Yeah, Gore, but that was violence and music.
Right.
The song "Fuck the Police."
Right. But
you had to have lyrics.
And I will tie the video game violence thing into that too, because honestly, the video game violence is an argument that has been had for 80 years, way before video games, because we had that with the Satanic Panic. We had that with disco. We had it with Elvis and the Beatles.
Disco does cause violence, but
different kind. We had it with we had it when movies went from We had it when movies went from silent to talkies. We had it with the invention of the radio. There's always something that comes out, some form of media, some art, that there will be moralists who will go, but the children. What will that do to the children?
And who cares? Who cares?
And time again, from the talkies to radio to rock and roll to video games to D&D, none of it has ever bore fruit. None of it you can ever trace back to say this caused the downfall of society. So it's really just, it's a recycling of an argument that, a failed argument that has been going on for generations.
It's like a common misconception.
Yes.
That the new thing should be feared.
Right. Now, there's a separate discussion because you were saying about, psychology and video game trauma and such. There's a game addiction. Yeah. That is a real thing. That has been recognized by the AMA. It's diagnosed. There are now specialists in psychology and addiction medicine who specialize in video. That is a real thing. Just because your kid plays 2-3 hours a day, video game addiction. Though video game addiction is like real life. It's like gambling addiction, sex addiction, and heroin addiction.
People playing 60 hours straight.
Right. Neglecting their health and
then going to the hospital because all their organs have shut down.
Right.
You need to drink some more Diet Mountain Dew, okay?
Yeah.
God.
The health drink of champions.
Fucking Diet Mountain Dew. It's the worst. Oh, I have a story about it. I'm going to tell it. Yeah, we were playing D&D. Dungeons and Dragons. This is before we switched over to DreadLore.
The red.
The red. Anyway, if you don't know, Jed, DreadLore is a different system.
Okay.
It's not D&D. I made it.
I did not.
Anyway, before we switched over to DreadLore, we were playing Dungeons and Dragons. And, we did the thing where we were all in college, or had degrees and jobs and shit. So, of course, we weren't going to class. And instead, we were playing music in our band and playing Dungeons and Dragons campaigns. You got to kill the Demogorgon, man. All right? Mm-hmm. And we're sitting there sleeping on the floor and the couch and such. And it's like crazy early in the morning, probably like 11 or 12 noon. And the guy on the couch, the guy on the couch gets up. And he's sort of like a shambling mound of a person, okay? Like this dude, all he does is play games. And he's really good at them. Really good at D&D, knows all the stuff. But seriously into video games. He gets up and my buddy Tim, who is a Patreon member, by the way. We were at Tim's house. Yeah. Tim comes down. We're like all just fucking, hung over. And we're so tired because it's so early in the morning. We're standing there. And this guy gets up from the couch, sort of like lumbers up. Reaches down, first thing, like not even looking. Picks up not a 2-liter, a 3-liter. Oh yeah, whoa, baby. You know what I'm talking about? It's got like the big fucking nozzle on it, right?
Yeah, extra.
You guys like, ugh. And his huge hands like bananas, grabs this fucking 3-liter, this warm 3-liter of Diet Mountain Dew, and he's like, go, 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 go. And Tim and I are like, and that's what I think about video gamers now. Okay, so that's my whole story. Then I found $5, and it's a good story. My point: take care of yourselves, everybody. Don't drink Diet Mountain Dew. Fucking noon, warm, like 7 degree.
Especially not 3 liters of it at a time.
Oh, I mean, he drank some of it, but like it was like his thermos. Which is.
I'm looking where I can buy a 3-liter of Diet Mountain Dew.
I haven't seen them in a really long time, but they're out there.
I think they probably.
I've never seen one.
They're out there.
I remember when I was in college, they had 3 liters, and it was a bigger than 2-liter. But I think they like categorized soda is bad, even if it's diet soda, because it still has
Diet soda is
calories.
awful for you.
It
It
still
is
has calories.
so much worse. It's awful for you. And there's science behind this. You guys drink Diet Coke, don't you?
No,
No? Good.
I don't drink it. I don't drink any soda.
Diet soda is awful. Here, walk with me down this this thought experiment. Who do you know that typically is drinking Diet Coke? And why? One, it's people that are trying to lose weight. So a bunch of them are just saying there might be a correlation. Two, they're addicted.
Yep.
Because apparently Diet Coke's good, but it's not good. It's not good. It doesn't taste good. It does not taste good.
It hurts
It's
my
awful.
soul.
It's awful.
I had a roommate that drank it all the time. He was a computer programmer. He's actually pretty successful.
Maybe I should start
he would
drinking.
go through gallons of this stuff on a regular basis.
Yeah.
He wasn't overweight, and
He's not a quitter.
Of course, he was in his 20s, you know. But I smoked cigarettes at the time. Nobody smokes anymore. I don't smoke anymore. I haven't
Right.
smoked for a long time. But like, I smoked cigarettes at that time, and I couldn't drink Diet Coke because it was so bad. I just couldn't do it.
That says something.
It's an addiction. It's an addiction that you have to force yourself to like cigarettes. I mean,
yeah, that makes sense. And I don't. And if I gotta force myself to like something, I don't.
unlike bacon, which it's very difficult to not like bacon. Even soy bacon is good. All the bacons are good.
Whoa. Turkey bacon? Mm-mm.
Yeah, turkey bacon.
I'll eat
No,
it.
not turkey bacon. So like
like
you know,
diet bacon.
the vegetarian bacon.
Vegemite?
Yeah, no, Vegemite's like chocolate. No,
Is it?
vegetarian bacon. Yeah.
Like
Well,
Australian,
it's like
isn't it?
it's like a thing that Australian people like. I don't know.
Why?
It looks like chocolate paste or something.
Why do they call it Vegemite if it's
I don't know.
chocolate?
I always thought it was,
It looks like
Nutella
chocolate, but it doesn't taste like chocolate from what I hear.
or is it salty? It's savory. It's like a savory
I was gonna say, I didn't think it
chocolate
was.
looking
I was gonna
thing
say it's not
that
chocolate.
they
I
spread
think
on
it's-
things.
You're a
Put it on a
spread.
carrot.
All right. last few questions because I know we're getting on the 3-hour mark. So we'll give ourselves a few minutes to close down.
Right?
One, I have a zinger. Ha. Two, I wanted to ask you about your podcast, First Gen Gamers,
All right.
and just the projects that you're working on now or are going to work on. This is plug time.
Plug time. So First Gen Gamers, we are going. I say we in a kind of a royal way because I had a co-host. The co-host and I have separated. So
you have?
yes.
Shit, because I tagged him on Twitter.
Oh,
Oops.
Whoops.
Yeah. So we haven't recorded in a month, and he's just kind of just.
Do tell.
I don't know is the thing. He's just
No.
kind of vanished. So I just assume after a month he's just got other things going on, which is fine. I wish I could have known up front. Fine. So I'm on the hunt for a new co-host. I'm gonna be actually working with a buddy tomorrow. We're gonna try it out and see if we got the chemistry. But we hope to be. I hope to soon get it started back up because it's a fun podcast. It's a celebration of gaming history. It is, even if no matter how nerdy it gets, because there are some categories that nerdy. It's meant to be fun. It's meant to inspire discussion and inspire discovery. I want to listen to the podcast and went, wow, there's a whole game on Sega Genesis. I gotta try that out, and I hope that it can inspire that discovery of gaming's history because it's a rich bizarre but rich history. So that will be coming back shortly here, probably in a couple weeks, I believe, and it's a bi-weekly podcast. You can listen to it on all the major platforms: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube,
SoundCloud.
So it's available just about everywhere. I believe we have a link tree. I believe it'll description. So
Yeah, we've got it open.
Yeah.
Yep.
Linktree / first gen gamers.
Yep. It's also got a link. Also has links there to my social media if you want to.
Yeah.
I'm only on Blue Sky. So
What is Blue Sky?
Yeah, I don't think I know Blue Sky.
Blue Sky was started by the guy who started Twitter, actually, Jack Dorsey. He didn't like the way the Twitter was going, so Elon Musk bought Twitter and sent it into the gutter. Blue Sky is a lot like Twitter in that it is the limited, what is it called, microblogging. But unlike Twitter, it doesn't run on an algorithm. All of you can pick feeds that are dedicated to a topic. So, I like Doctor Who, I like podcasts, I like whatever. You pick these categories and it will aggregate posts. But your main feed is friends only.
Yeah, my feed on X just turned into like a bunch of shit that I hated because like I would comment on it because I hated it, and then I would just troll and comment. It just like it was just an infinite internet argument. So I don't really get on social media anymore.
Blue Sky, I'm not going to say Blue Sky is heavenly.
But I like being able to get on a thing and have interests that I actually want to see, and I think Reddit does an okay job of it, and I look forward to seeing what Blue Sky does.
Yeah, Blue Sky just opened up to the public. It was invite only for a while. It's got about 3 million users, I think. If you want that Twitter fix without the endless doom scrolling and bots and endless arguments, and you would like to be able to focus, I like this. Pick your topics and have those feeds, and meet artists. It's a great place to meet artists. A great place for marginalized communities. I don't know why I'm going on the sales pitch for Blue Sky, but it's good.
Kind of cool.
It's
what you use.
Yeah, it's been.
I'd never even heard of it.
It's been. I got off Twitter last year, and it's been a nice Twitter substitute. It's been Twitter without the.
You haven't really experienced this on this podcast, which is interesting. Usually Ken and I are at odds.
Yeah, I expect us to ghost each other any second now.
Right, any second. But you will see a little bit of it right. You will see a little bit of it right now. So I like Elon Musk. ... Continue.
I don't like Elon Musk. I think that he owns companies that does amazing things. I think.
Do you see? Do you see?
He's an idiot that could have made a lot more money than he did because he's so full of himself. He let his ego get in the way of reality of who his audience is.
He's a marketer. I don't think I mean this comparison in the most literal way. If he is a modern Thomas Edison in that he doesn't really do a whole lot, but what he does, he markets the living shit out of it, and he markets it well.
Less of a Tesla and more of an Edison. It's a pretty good comparison. It's pretty good.
Yes, which is ironic that he named his car company after a guy that he's nothing like.
Oh no!
Did you know? Did you all know? And now, granted, I know this because I was looking it up. Meaning, anyone, it is readily available to see on like Wikipedia, right? It's not from me. I teach English and I'm interested in languages and all these things. I have wondered for a long time where the fuck hello came from. Because, like, etymologically, you know, it doesn't sound like Latin to me. It doesn't really sound like German to me. So I was trying to think of a cognate, and I'm in Los Angeles, so there's a lot of Spanish, and my Spanish is horrible. I'm trying to learn a little Spanish. And of course, hola was there. And I was like, how do you go hola? You know, Spanish is romantic. It's a Roman language, ergo it's Latin, right?
Mm-hmm.
How they go from hola? Is it related? It has an H. Actually, it's an interesting find. You might look it up if you're interested. I will tell you this. Same root. Hello and hola. Same thing. Same thing. Comes from hail, as in to be hale and healthy. Solid body. You are hale, Hale. Hail to you, hail morrow, etc. Hello is a mariner's call because you're on a boat and you're like, yo, right? Well, it's much easier to say hello. It's just a sound. So why in the fuck do we say hello as a greeting? Because prior to the phone, we didn't. We said good morning or those sorts of things.
Good day.
In fact, Edison is the reason we say hello, because when people bought the first phones, of course, no one had a phone. So they were like, what do I do with this? And there was a little instruction manual, and it said, pick up the receiver and give a hearty hello, H-U, hello, so they can hear you. And the phone is why we say hello.
Interesting.
Explosion. And it's the same root as hola. Because if you think about it, like, you know, salud, salut in French, these are derivatives of salve, which salve means, it's Latin for salute, as in salutations. It's a greeting. So I was like, why the fuck in Spanish do they say hola? Hail be to thee. Wassail, motherfuckers. Okay, story time. Over. Elon Musk rules. What?
The end.
The end. I was on X, Twitter, whatever, and on the ttrpg community stuff, and there's apparently a thing right now where there's a supplemental material that has I'm gonna fuck all this up when it comes to the political correctness of it, but understand, I just don't know how to talk about it. It is supplemental material for inclusivity, specifically around a wheelchair that's magic, a magic wheelchair. And so you have a disabled or special needs or whatever you want to call this person, a paraplegic, who can be a hero in their special wheelchair that's like a +1 wheelchair. This is unironic. A +1 wheelchair, rolls around with like wheelchair guns. This is all fine. What I found on the Twitter was this enormous fight about it. And it's like super passive aggressive. It's like, if you don't think this and this and this, then go to hell. And it's all about this wheelchair thing. And I was like, I want to know your all's thoughts about it. I'm going to give you mine really quick. And it is this. Why is there even an argument? Continue.
I would agree with that. Like, why it doesn't hurt anybody to include material like that. If you don't want to use it, don't use it. The end.
The end.
Yeah.
Why is it a big deal? Maybe the issue has to do with people on the left walking around with tomahawks if you don't agree with them.
I don't know if that's... I mean, I feel like that's just a little stabby. It doesn't have any context, so it's very difficult to argue with or against it. I think there are people on both sides of of our political spectrum that will just violently, dox you for no reason,
Right.
or any number of things. So to say that, you can't blame a single side. If you would care to rephrase the question, I don't understand why people are arguing about it.
Yeah, I don't understand why they're arguing. I really don't.
I do. While you were on that diatribe, I did come up with a question that I had.
Yeah.
Because we talk about scripts, or like white cards, or what are they called for ttrpg, for games where people fill out a form to play. Where it's like
character sheets?
You allowed, not character sheets. It's like a permission to, like, these are the things that.
Oh, there's a specific thing. It's like in the event you're playing a public game,
or a white card, or
it's like if you're playing a public game, and with people you don't know, and you're like, hey, look, these are the topics that I don't want to go over. So, for example, sexual violence or whatever, and you can hold up a card like an X, be like, hey, look, I don't want to do
X
that.
card, maybe.
Do they have
like that? Yeah. Do they have something like that for video games, or like, can you set parameters up in live chat, or is it just?
Ooh, interesting. That is interesting.
Is it just like disclaimer, whatever happens and it happens, and if it's bothersome to you, you just flag the person and that's it?
Unfortunately, I'm not aware of any way that to set like a content warning. The closest thing that you could possibly do is that all of the console manufacturers do have, in conjunction with the ESRB, which is the ratings board that all video games have to, in conjunction with that, all of the consoles, depending on the age that you create, as long as you create an age accurate profile for your child, it will limit what games they can play. So if you set up your child's, they're not going to be able to play Mortal Kombat or Call of Duty or something like that because they're rated higher than their age threshold will allow.
Do you think the rating systems are pretty good? Do the rating system?
I will say it is better than the MPAA. It is more transparent than the MPAA, but it does lack some consistency.
Yeah.
You will see a great example. There's a series of games called Dark Souls.
Yeah, Dark Souls.
Dark Souls is a very gothic medieval game, very dark, very heavy, and very violent. Not like gunshots to the head violent, but it is medieval, and you're fighting demons, and you're fighting, and it's not, there's blood spray and viscera. The first, and it's like that in all of them, and there's good and bad. There's a lot of things that would get flagged as potentially mature content. The first game is rated M. That's mature. That is the highest rating that retailers will sell. Adults.
Is there an X video game?
That would be adults only. And you really, all the major retailers will not sell adults only.
But that exists. I presume.
It does. It does exist, but like it's pretty much limited to pornographic games.
Yeah.
But anything else, the top rating that any retailer or any digital storefront is M. So Dark Souls 1 is rated M for violence, for alcohol, for religious icons, etc. Dark Souls 3 rated the same thing. Dark Souls 2 is rated teen. Same damn content. There's no rhyme or reason why the first two are the first and the third are M, and the second one. So,
and all that. I mean, who comes up with the rating system? I mean, do they have like raters play through the whole system or the whole game, or are they just kind of just making up themselves?
So the ratings board is independent. I don't know who's on it. It's for all I know, it's 3 housewives from Encino. it could, right. It's that part is a little shadowy. The games are rated based upon what the developers tell the ESRB is in the game. So as long as they are forthright, they will rate it based on that. That has backfired on a couple of occasions. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas was the most notorious because there had been a mini game that was related to the side mission where you back to your house and you end up having sex. Now the characters were clothed, so there was no nudity.
Didn't see anything, you just heard it.
Well, you heard it and you saw like a couple of motions, or it kind of panned out. And you just heard the noises, but they were still fully clothed. That mini game was taken out of the game because they just decided at the last minute to do that. But they didn't take the code out; they just took the accessibility. Like you couldn't access it without hacking the game, but you could. But that code was still in there for the mini. So if you hacked it, if you knew how to hack it, you could get to it. Because they didn't disclose that as content. That game got reassessed after the content was found, and it went from an M to an adults only. And so then they had to recall the game, take the content out completely to the code level, and then resubmit it to get it back down to an M.
That's wild.
So the rating system works, but it also works on an honor system. So it works only as well the developers will be on.
I mean, and I, to go full circle as we're kind of ending up, it's just like I remember playing Leisure Suit Larry at about the time that King's Quest came out, and thinking that the games were very similar. The first, and I don't think they were like play wise incredibly difficult. You just kind of walked around in both of them. It wasn't. It was barely out of being a mod itself. I think.
Leisure Suit Larry, I'm sorry, was from Sierra, I believe.
Yeah, they were both, I think, Sierra. And they probably had some skin or had some programming in both.
Which I think
save a little bit of money.
There's another tie in there, just an anecdote. I think the person who wrote something with Terry Wiseman or something. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Continue.
Name's familiar, but I can't place it.
Tracy Hickman and Terry Wiseman. I think they had like Dragonlance, I believe the books, and Deathgate, but I may be conflating that stuff in my head.
Look at this. Graphics are so incredible.
Oh my god.
I mean, I remember the graphics in King's Quest being
awesome.
Pretty good. But yeah, no, looking at this, it's like, oh, this
Roberta Williams. I'm totally wrong. Yeah.
This is interesting.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right. Okay, so we totally interrupted you. You got the first gen gamers going on. You're looking for a new co-host.
Yep.
And you're thinking about starting a new podcast.
Yes. It is a long ways off. Coming summer. It's going to be a radio drama style podcast.
Ooh.
Nice.
But it's really okay, so there's no way to I just have to explain it completely. So the true crime podcast genre, it is a true, heavy quotation marks, true crime podcast if it were to take place within a movie. So it is a fictional true crime podcast that is referencing the events of a movie as if it were real. and examining those events. But because you can't, a movie, if you're in that movie's universe, you didn't witness that, so you have to treat it like crimes. You have to examine what the police would have known, and then fill in the blanks. And the movies that I happen to be doing are the Friday the 13th movies. So it is treating that entire series as if it really happened, examine, and the way that it's a way to talk about the movies but using the plot holes as plot points. So it's a way, like I said, it's a way to talk about, but it's doing it from a completely new perspective.
Now, do you extrapolate your own? Do you add to it, or is it just you are reviewing essentially the movie but in the meta of, hey, it really happened, we're investigating it? Are you adding to the story, or not?
It a little bit. So like the first episode is all backstory, but it's backstory, but there is backstory that they haven't filled in, and I'm being kind of there is some stuff that I've added in. Everything that happened in the movies is the starting point, but I have to treat it like I can't reference dialogue. I can't reference things that weren't witnessed. Like in the first movie, there's a scene where couple goes into a cabin and they have sex, and then they get killed no one saw them die. So I can't say this guy died, the guy died, and then died in that order, because they're to see it. So I have to be circumspect and be like, well, these two people died in proximity to one another. I died first, and so it's reframing the movies in a different way. It's looking at them in a completely different angle, and it's become very complicated to keep a lot straight. And because I'm writing it out and treating it like true crime, I have to get very detailed in certain aspects of it, and it's kind of spiraled out of control.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm on the 6th script, which covers the 5th movie. I've still got the 6th movie, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. Well, no, 7th, 8th, 9th, and I skipped the 10th because that takes place in the future. So like I've got another 4 or 5. It's just the pace at which I'm writing it's taking a long time. So I don't. Yeah. I couldn't tell you when this.
Are you going to put it out episode by episode, or in one big chunk?
Episode by episode. To see if just to build intrigue, to make it kind of like a weekly radio drama. And if I have a dream for the project, it would require a lot of research, real life research, but I would really like to get some of the actors involved.
Wow.
The problem would be money. I don't have the money for it, and because it's a fanfic project, I can't make money.
Right.
So I don't know if that would be something off, but I would. Perfect.
If you can make money as Patreon, can't you? Like if you had.
Nope. Because no, you can't. The only thing that I can do, because it's trademarked and I don't have the permission, the only thing that I could do would be a Kickstarter, but the Kickstarter could only be used to pay for expenses. Like I couldn't make a profit off. So
you would have to pay actors. I mean, I know a little bit about that. I've been a filmmaker for 25 years, and getting stuff made and done that is scripted, it's hard work. And finding the people and going through those steps, but it feels good when you've created something. Even It doesn't matter what it is. I mean, if I
Right. And that
cover a song because I play music as well, or if I write my own, it still feels good.
right.
And if something you're into, fuck yeah, I mean, go for it.
Yeah. And if I don't get actors to reprise roles or just to play it, it's fine. Like I can get amateur voiceover actors, I can go, and that would be just as fine. It's not like this is an authorized project. So
I bet you might be able to get Bill to do a cameo.
I will, dude. I keep coming up with more voice roles, so dude, it'd be perfectly fine. I'm gonna need a ton of voiceover help on.
Well, give me a call. I do voiceover.
Awesome. I'll keep it in mind.
All right.
For whatever year it gets finished.
Right. All right, Ken, any last words? And then we're gonna move to Jed's last words.
Like famous last words. I don't know about
words. Anecdotes.
Anecdotes.
Joke.
I've enjoyed talking to you tonight, Jed. I enjoyed listening to your podcast. I listened to a few episodes before we got on there, and I look forward to hearing podcasts that you make in the future, and definitely the Theater of the Mind drama. That sounds awesome. I'm certainly interested in that. So please keep us posted on your next exploits. If you have any interest in playing one shot, we do one shots on Monday night sometimes, and often
in
need people to
DreadLore.
step in. In the world of DreadLore. So if you want to try and work something out in the future, we'd be interested in having you on for one of those. And that happens on Monday nights, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Exactly. We're not ever late.
We're never late.
We never start anywhere 1 second after 7 p.m.
Never. Not
always spot on time.
Spot on.
Well, thank
Jed,
you.
That's my last thoughts.
Do you have any last words, aphorisms, idioms, riddles, jokes?
There once was a man from Nantucket. No. Aside from cheap plug for my podcast,
Do it.
it is First Gen Gamers. Please go listen. If you love video gaming, whether you've been gaming for a month or 40 years, it's a positive force. I'm trying to make it a positive. There's already enough negativity in the world.
Yeah, right on.
That's very cool. All right, this has been the Geeky Gamer Podcast. We've had Jed Shaffer on. It's been a good conversation, goddammit.
Yes, it has.
In the event that you want to listen to it, guess what? It's on YouTube. It's on all podcasts. It's everywhere. Goddammit. Patreon. We do that. Monday night 7 p.m. on Twitch. Thursdays 7 p.m. Eastern. We do the Geeky Gamer Podcast. If you want to jump on as a guest, let us know. You can go to DreadLore.com. You find everything out. Everything you ever wanted to know about everything is at DreadLore.com. We got a Patreon, as I said. I wanted to give a shout out to the Patreon peoples who they literally just give us money. We want to thank them for doing that because it helps out a ton. Tim Roberts, longtime member. Daniel Hulker, he's pretty good. He's pretty good. Pretty good guy. The Incredible Hulkster, as he's known. Nostalgic, always has our back. And Natalia Cline.
Natalia Cline.
Kicking ass for us all. We also do a coffee thing. KOFI. To be completely honest, I think it's kind of stupid. I think it's kind of dumb. But you can tip us. Fucking check it out. Hey, you know what else you should do? Go to First Gen Gamers. It's a podcast. Fucking go check that shit out. Jed Shaffer knows everything about gaming and many other things. Thank you guys. Oh yeah, Couchfire Media. if you've enjoyed the graphics, if you've enjoyed the artwork, Couchfire Media is who you want to go to. They do hours. They got a really good price too. They do that for. www.couchfiremedia.com. You know, they'll do work for you. Trois Reblay Productions, we're never going to mention them again, ever. Thank you guys.
Why? They're
all
so great. with
lower
the story
case.
and all the joy that they
They're so
bring.
good.
This
They're so
looks
good.
super
I
good.
love those guys. They owe me money. All right.
I'm sure they owe you a lot of money.
Those guys go to hell. They go straight to hell. All lowercase letters. And Mr. Interrupt provides the music. The sexy podcast and live stream we're doing, people. Tell all your friends. Hide your kids. Hide your wives. That's all we got.
All right. Good night.
Good night.